cold at the touch, dead in the eyes, no signs of life no more. I put your love under the knife. Leave me to die here all alone. No signs of life no more, no. A crying dove may never fly. It's black and white. Yeah. Black and white. Oh, oh. Oh, oh. It's black and white. Come on, baby. Love, no more, baby. Black and white. Come on, baby. Love, no more, baby. It's black and white. Just let me go. It's only right. For all I know, it's only matter. It's calico. It's black and white. White, white, white. Just let me go. It's only right. For all I know, it's only matter. It's calico. It's black and white. White, white, white. It's black and white. Yeah. Black and white. Oh, oh. Oh, oh. It's black and white. It's black and white.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everyone, wherever you may be, and welcome to the DynamiXX Endurance Series Round 1, the 6 hours of Zandvoort. My name is Daniel Handover, and joining me in the commentary box this afternoon, I should say, leading into the evening, is Mr. Ed May. Ed, how are you doing?
I'm doing brilliantly, Dan. Thank you. And yes, we are set for another new season here on Sim Race World TV for the first round of the new DynamiXX Endurance Series. Slightly new format this time. Of course, if you can cast your minds back to last season, it was a multi-class endurance event with LMP2s, GTEs and GT3s taking to the track. But this time out, and for the remainder of the season, it is a single-class GT3 league. And I'll tell you what, Dan, GT3s have exploded onto the scene in iRacing pretty much since the end, or towards the end, of last season's DynamiXX Endurance Series. It's become a real mainstay in iRacing in terms of top-level esports drivers, and also just all around becomes so much more popular with the recent additions, of course, of the Lamborghini, the Porsche, the BMW. And I'll tell you what, we are in for some brilliant racing.
We certainly are. We're in some very, very good racing, as you say, but we are also looking forward to the dynamics of this race. It's what I enjoy about endurance events. You have it ebbs and flows, and it builds up, and it calms down, it builds up again. It's a very, very, I say one of my favourite formats of driving is endurance racing. And yes, GT3s, also one of my favourite types of car class. And as you would say, we've seen a big sort of expansion in GT3s in recent times. We have also seen a big expansion as well going forward into other categories within iRacing, simply because iRacing is just becoming more and more popular. But yeah, GT3s have certainly taken the top step, I think, on that. We're going to go to the track action in a few moments. It is an open qualifying session of half an hour. So 30 minutes total, 6 minutes and 50 seconds have gone. And at the moment, we will have a look on the top step of the podium provisionally in the Lamborghini. It is Olivier Boltnick, the number 44, Sim District GT3 by Vibe, and also BMS Esport as well. I can't imagine that will be something that will be... that's quite a long team name, isn't it? That might be tricky to say when it's in the middle of a battle.
Yeah, Olivier Wiltig, I remember him from last season in the GTE, I believe racing in the Ferrari, this time in the Lamborghini GT3, and he was such a strong contender. Wasn't there for the first round, but in all subsequent rounds, that BMS Esports team was super strong, taking the last two victories of the season in GTE, and he seems to be adapting very nicely to GT3, of course, with the addition of ABS, makes things a little bit easier, and of course, BMS, they do have some lovely, lovely liveries. You can see it there with the District and Vibe logos all aboard, but it is, I think, a BMS team still running, I think, actually. Are there any other BMS teams? I can't see that be the case. Actually, yes, there is. If we go down into fourth place, we can see Simdristic GT3 by BMS Esport, a name I'm not too familiar with. Robin van Gogh, I think, his debut in the DynamiXX Endurance Series. This time in the BMW car that was very popular in seasons gone by since it was introduced. Now fallen a little bit out of favour. One of only two BMWs racing this season. Most drivers opting, funnily enough, for the Porsche, which I think we can come down to in a little bit and focus on Vord Mallarts, who's currently in second place for a team that I've not seen before racing in this, but it's Decimo.be, Decimo B. And, well, it's looking like a very good qualifying session so far for them in, I think, the newest GT3 on the iRacing service. A car that's, I think, very tricky to get a handle with because, funnily enough, the engine's not in the right place. I find it's in a bit of a silly position to have an engine, but I'll tell you what, Porsche seems to make it work, and the driver's definitely making it work here, being second on the board.
Well, I think arguably, yeah, Porsche have been making it work for the last, 50 years. And it's if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Whoa, Mallarts just goes a little bit off into the barriers. That will certainly be some damage. And I'm sure Wall will now be wanting to come into the pits and repair his car. In fact, there he goes. It is being led, at the moment, qualifying is being led by the Lamborghini. So Oliver Boltnick for the Sim District GT3. We then have Wall Mallarts in the Porsche, separating another Lamborghini from Jens Gussens in the Xenom Esports 1 car. And then we've got a BMW. So we've got, German versus Italian as it stands at the moment. The Audi is in there as well. Currently, Peter Lemkins from RP Motorsport qualifying. Fastest time is a 1:35.54. So just under a second off of Olivier Boltnick's time. However, we've talked about this time and time again, Ed, haven't we, in previous broadcasts that we've done. It doesn't necessarily mean out and outright pace here. It doesn't necessarily mean everything, does it? Because it's a 6-hour race. A lot can happen. A lot is going to happen, and ultimately that's going to give everyone a bit of a fighting chance if qualifying maybe doesn't suit them 100%.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be down, of course, to how well you can race, not necessarily how you can qualify. It's over 6 hours, like you say. Plenty goes on. Plenty is expected to go on. Funnily enough, actually, I've just seen someone. You can see them down in, I think, 17th place. I think they are in the wrong class, but we'll have a look. It's Peter Mckay. The Peter Mckay, if memory serves correct, commentator and friend of us all at Sim Races World TV. And he is actually opting for, that isn't the right class at all. That is a GT3. That's the Cup car. So he is in the right class, but I think he's the lone Cup car entrant.
I mean, to be fair, absolutely fair play. Cup car's a great car. I think we've really enjoyed it. This might just also be a good opportunity to, test some multi-class events. It's obviously not ideal being the lone car in a class. There could very well be a reason for that. We're not 100% sure, but ultimately it's good testing either way because it gives you an opportunity to test with multi-class, doesn't it? The GT3s aren't much faster. To be fair, around a circle like this, 1 minute 30. 1 minute 38 second lap, around about sort of 3 to 4 seconds off pace on average. That's not too much considering these cars have harder tyres, they've got less aero, and they've got less power as well. It's very, very impressive. And arguably, as well, I don't know, Ed, if you've driven this new Porsche Cup car compared to the old one. This is a miles better to drive.
It's so fun, isn't it? You can get a little bit of a lateral slide on, which wasn't something you could do in the previous Porsche. It was just the back end kicking out and you would have a torrid time. But now you can really, really drive the car to its limits and find that limit so much easier. So I definitely think Peter Mckay and his teammates at Porsche Sport are going to be in for a very fun 6 hours. Maybe not so much by themselves, but I've got to make the bold prediction. I think they've got this one in the bag. They might also come last, but I think they can get the win as well. At least in class. Maybe not overall. It'd have to be a very, very dramatic race for them to take the overall victory, but everything there on for a good chance of getting the class victory here.
Well, certainly so. I think that's probably we can certainly safely say that. I've just noticed as well, midfield in this class. It seems to be Porsche orientated. The leading sort of mid-pack from 6th to 9th and then down to sort of 11th and 13th. It just seems to be a lot of Porsches. The Audi doesn't seem to be too popular, and neither does the BMW, which is interesting. Normally, BMW tends to be quite popular in GT3 leagues, so it's good to see it's good to see the Porsche getting some love. Considering it is still a relatively new car to the service. A lot of drivers obviously will have a much better understanding of the car now. But even so, it's still, as you were mentioning earlier on there, Ed, it's a very, very tricky car to drive. Compared to the likes of the Lamborghini or the BMW, it arguably is one of the most difficult cars. But it's nice to see that it is getting... we've got a lot of cars on the grid with this Porsche. We see Semel Zoglu just getting a wheel on the grass going into turn 1. I don't know if that was was that something... Is that an intentional thing? We may actually see this. This is the other sort of little nuances that we see sometimes within races within leagues, obviously with certain tracks and certain cars. There tends to be sometimes, especially exploiting all of the track where possible. We might start seeing this a little bit as well, and I've noticed this a little bit more and more. Is again simply because competition is just becoming so high. What we are now seeing is there are tiny little bits here where drivers will try and take a bit more curb here or a little bit of grass here just to give any advantage that they can. Especially now, Ed, when we're looking, gaps are separated here by, we're talking hundredths, not tenths anymore. Yeah,
it's going to be very, very close out there on the track. And I think as well, it's just going to come down to not only the little advantages drivers can accrue with track limits, but also which driver sort of lineup, I guess, is the strongest, because it's not going to be just yourself in the car. It's not going to be all of these drivers out in qualifying setting the lap times that will do all 6 hours. They have teammates to help them out and swap through. Obviously, fair share rules have to be adhered to, otherwise they will be disqualified from the results. So while Olivia Wiltink looks very strong up at the front in the 44, how many times have we heard that over the past, half a decade in Formula One racing? The 44's far and away the fastest on the track. But it's not just Wiltink in the car, of course. He's got teammates, and depending on the lineup in behind, he could be in for a very tricky evening's race. Can we have a look now down to Gregory Vranks, Sim Racers World Pro 1. Oh, and he gets a slide coming through the very fast right-hander. And that's something that I think you can find might be occurring, at least more in qualifying than in the race. Drivers finding the limits, maybe overstepping the boundaries just a bit. Let's have a look on board. Does he hit a bump, or does he just take too much into the corner? Now the car was already going, no bumps, just a little bit too hot for your right-hander, chasing that time.
Yeah, it's easily done. It's very easily done, to be fair. What you'll find as well is as the car went into the corner, the weight was already a little bit unsettled. This is what happens with the Porsche, is if the rear starts to gain a bit of traction and starts to gain a bit of momentum, it actually picks up that momentum and carries it really, really quite heavily and quickly as well. So that is why we were seeing that a little bit there. So certainly not ideal, but Gregory Vranks is the number 384, just getting back ready and will be performing another couple of laps. We're over halfway through qualifying now. We've got halfway of qualifying left, and then we'll be getting into the race. You see a couple of drivers in the pit lane, some on out laps as well. They probably will have enough for 2, maybe even 3 runs. We'll have to see. We really don't know, depending on how many drivers and depending on how many laps people are doing in qualifying. I always tend to do, like for me, for example, personally, I'd like to do, if one qualifying run, I'd like to do 4 laps, especially in the GT3 cars. It just feels that after the 4th lap, they do start to drop off significantly, so it doesn't really make too much sense to continue doing more than about 4 laps. Some drivers, though, you see them, they'll do 6 or 7 laps in a qualifying run if they want to get a feel for the circuit, scrub the tyres in, and then they build them up. Some drivers will, which I find fascinating, some drivers they'll come out, do 1 fly and come back in. They've got that much confidence in their driving style that they know that they can just do 1 lap and then they're in, which I find staggering.
I think it's easier to do that when you've got 30 minutes to play with. You can have a few burn laps going through, and you can just sort of sacrifice it and know that in that 30 minutes, you do your out lap, you set your flying lap. Maybe it's not so good, maybe getting off track and it's invalidated, but you've got plenty of time to throw around with and have another out lap and another stab at the single flying lap attempt. That sometimes does work out for drivers. Like you said, other times drivers opt for maybe fast lap, then a slightly slower lap to let the tyres cool off a bit, get them back into the optimum window so they're not overheating, they're not too cold, and then go for another flying lap right afterwards. There's different ways you can get the tyres to work here on the latest build of iRacing, which is really good to see that they've, definitely in the GT3s at the very least, played about with the tyre parameters, and I think we're going to see that come through in endurance racing. We find that the tyres, at least in my experience of racing, in this new build and on these new tyres, there's a first sort of 5 or so laps where the tyres are at their peak. They are really, really strong. And then they start to fall off just a touch, then hitting somewhat of a plateau at around about maybe 7-10 laps into the stint. And then after that point, it doesn't really get much worse. In fact, it actually gets faster as the fuel burns out of the car, and the car gets lighter, of course, more responsive on turning, on acceleration, all of that good stuff. And then maybe later on, maybe in your second stint on tyres, if you can make him work that long, it starts to go away. You can really feel when the tyres are starting to give up on you. So the drivers will be able to get in tune with the car, and we'll start to see different strategies maybe coming through in this race. Of course, over 6 hours, if you can stretch stints on the tyres to 2 hours each time, you're only coming in to change the tyres twice over the whole race. If you can maybe stretch them to 3 hours, that's only 1 tyre change. That saves you around about 30 to 25 seconds to your competitors. So that is the real question of what the drivers aim to do in this race. And having a look actually in this qualifying session, can see the gap with 11th and 10th, just about 1/100th of a second between Deals and Deckens. You can see Divvy Deals racing for Duct Tape Racing, aiming to get his car up inside the top 10. Can't quite do so at the moment. Following Sebastian Pedersen, who again isn't too far behind either. Very close battle. You can see the sea of orange in the midfield. As Deals does improve, it goes up now inside the top 10, comfortably in ninth. Well, not really comfortably in ninth place. You can see the gap is still 1/10 of a second.
It's close, isn't it?
Mckay Speed is very close because Gregory Franks, well, he's only 8 thousandths back.
I don't think how close it is. Again, like we see this more and more. Like most broadcasts now that we look at, I think we can both agree, can't we, that pretty much any broadcast now we do and any series we commentate on, it's just so close. Like you can see the intervals on the left-hand side. Scott McFall is currently leading the way. The gap is a relative size first, second, and third. It's about, well, actually, no, between first, second, and third, the gap is 0.4 of a second, and then just under 0.6 of a second. And then in this midfield, it just becomes so close. I'm staggered at how close it is. We've got several drivers and several teams separated by less than 1/10 of a second, less than 0.5 of a second. A lot of drivers as well. Absolutely madness. And as you were saying, between Martin Deckens and Gregory Vrancic, you've got 8 thousandths of a second. Absolute madness. Is that pace going to be kept up over 6 hours? That's always a tricky one. Probably not, we can certainly be honest. Again, with any driver, with any team, and there is always going to be, especially traffic management. That's also something that we'll take into consideration. Tyre drop off, absolutely. It doesn't matter. Even the best drivers in the world, they simply cannot maintain pace for an entire stint, just because the tyre drop off. Obviously, fuel loads. I've answered or I've asked a question myself, and I'm going to ask the question to myself almost, and also to you as well. What's going to happen with tyres? I'm going to bet, and I'm going to take a stab in the dark, and say probably a minimum of double, maybe even a triple, relatively early on in these stints with tyres.
Yeah, it's all going to be, of course, what the track conditions are. We can, I think, have a little look and find out what they are. And at least in this qualifying session, it's a 39-degree track temp. So I don't think the tyres are maybe going to last for half the race. Some drivers might opt for, of course, the double, because it helps out massively compared to single stint in tyres each and every time. Of course, allows drivers to acclimatise the track conditions as well. Getting in the car for 2 hours rather than 1 hour means that the drivers know the strength of the tyres, as we see GD the Flaming, I think that's how you'd pronounce that name. Again, moving out of the way that time for, I believe, Scott McFall for Simdrish GT3 BMS Vibe Esports team. Second place now focusing on Mabo Fallon. The gap has come down between second and first, but it's still a fairly comfortable margin, you have to say, for Simdrish GT3 by BMS Vibe Esports. 44 car still out on top, but good to see new teams coming into the DynamiXX Racing Simulators Endurance League. You can see Zemo be taking very well to this championship, up in second place so far in qualifying, but of course, how will they fare in the race? What strategies do they have to maybe either hold on to second place, stop themselves falling back, or maybe even go on the offensive and see if they can get up in front of the car that's currently topping the time sheets. Having a look at Kimber Hayt as well, Flemish Simsport. Always a treat to see the Flemish Simsport guys out on the track. You can see that lovely livery always stands out, doesn't it? And again, ever since the spec maps have been added to iRacing, their cars have looked brilliant.
Yes, spec maps, absolutely. It's weird because I can't imagine it without anyone. Can you? I certainly can't. Yeah, it's I don't know, just a little bit. It's amazing, isn't it? Because if we didn't have spec maps, how different would iRacing look? It would just be night and day. And it's weird, isn't it, to think that how long have spec maps even been a thing? Like a year and a half now, probably 2 years.
Yeah, I think it was coming up to 2 years now, actually. Time flies. I think it was somewhere around like January 2019. Not January, December 2019. If memory serves right. But that could be my mind being a little bit going away from me just a bit. It's still a lovely car to go on board with. Jan Phaetons now for Xenon Esports. Currently in 13th place, but not too far back from Sebastian Pedersen, to be fair. Again, like you say, times are ever so close. A sea of orange there in the mid-pack. Pretty much from, well, Jens Goosens down all the way. Kim Verheyet, the gaps between the cars are around about a tenth, maybe half a tenth of a second. So it's going to be very close to find out who will be on the podium, that's for certain. It seems that first and second are running away with it just a bit, but this is qualifying. Cars have to be set up differently for the race. You can't have the same setup in qualifying for the race. It just won't work out. Cars set up more aggressively, maybe a touch more camber as well to lean on the tyres that little bit more. Jan Phaetons there now coming into a bit that I think really does favour the Lamborghini is the direction change over the BMW at the very least. It's so strong in acceleration as well. It's a really good car at a track like Zandvoort. Corners that don't play into the inherent instability of the car as well. It's a bit of a tricky car to get your handle on. Much like how, of course, the Audi was for a long period of its lifetime. But I think cars have gradually gotten more and more easier to drive. Onto the gears, Jan Phaetons. Holding it down, powering out. You can see just how stable the car seems to be. Doesn't like to move about. As I say that, it gets a little bit of a twitch or into that quick right-hander and then through the sweeping left. But as soon as he puts the power down, it just goes. It seems so stable, doesn't it, Dan?
It does. It hunkers down and really sets off. You can see the Lamborghini's got some good traction. Arguably, the Porsche will have better traction in some of the slower speed corners. Although, depending if you get a good setup, that may not be the case. We're just seeing as well in the final few minutes of qualifying, 2.5 minutes remain here. And then everyone will be allowed to finish their lap and they will be jumping into the race, of which we will then be running through 6 hours of arguably what is a very good circuit. Shame it's not been updated at the moment, obviously with the new banking that was seen. That was, blimey, honestly, its time has just flown by so fast. I'm sure that banking was done, isn't it mid-COVID, I think, wasn't it? 2020? I think like late 2020, I believe. I'm not 100% sure what it was done. I'll have to, if someone could fact check that for me on YouTube, on the YouTube chat, that would be absolutely fantastic. But yeah, Zandvoort it's a fantastic circuit. It's been really good to see it gain some more popularity with F1 coming back, and arguably, I think it's increased the popularity on the sim as well. Just seen as well, I believe, and I think that is correct. Yes, it is going into turn 2. So that was Dries Mckay just going through for the DynamiXX Racing Simulator, number 6 Porsche. Just put his car up into P9, so just sitting in the top 10. Again, only half a tenth behind. Half a tenth in front of Dimmy Deals in the Duct Tape Racing number 13 Porsche. So very close once again. We've got just coming down to a minute left. I can see a couple of different green sectors, but apart from that, I'm not seeing actually that much. So whether we're going to see too much movement, I'm not 100% sure. Track is still very warm though. It's still wet. Do you know what? There you go. As I say that, even iRacing proving me wrong there and wanting to just rub it in my face. It's gone back now. It's darting between the 39 degrees and the 40 degrees C. It is, however, 2:05 in the afternoon in-game local time. So I wonder if, well, it should be actually in theory, Ed, to start to get a little bit colder moving forward as we've got 30 seconds remaining of qualifying.
Yeah, it will get cooler as the race moves on. Maybe we'll start to see drivers try differing strategies, try and maybe be a bit clever with the tyres at some points in the race. We're going to see what they plan, what they're going to bring out to the forefront as the clock's about to tick over. Dries Mckay comes across the line before the checkered flag is dropped, so he'll be able to finish this final lap now. Currently sitting, like we say, in 9th place. Can he make up that extra little bit of time? 9.3 hundredths of a second to make up to go ahead of Stefan Mckay for WPR Racing. And that would be a very, very good, strong qualifying session. But of course, qualifying isn't everything. It sets you up nicely for the race, of course. You tend to race roundabout where you qualify in an endurance setting, but over 6 hours there is definitely scope to make up places, but also lose out as well. So I think a lot of the time drivers in this early stint were focusing fully on making up the places, and then maybe later on in the stint, cooling off a little bit, as you tend to see in these endurance races. Kim Bahayet now out on the circuit, 13th fastest driver in the 86, but again, not too far back from Sebastian Pedersen for Tri Racing. Just look at that Lamborghini go through the final couple of corners now. Getting a good line, good drive out as well. Going from curb to curb, but actually taking it into the pits now, so that's the end of qualifying for Bahayet. Nils de Kuiper. God, just accelerates, doesn't it? Out of the slow speed corner, the rear end, nice and stable, you have to say, on corner exit at least for the Lamborghini. Brings it through final couple of corners. And yeah, I can see Parkins are on the YouTube chat. Oh, my God, Paul. Yeah, that is a very, very comfortable margin by Olivier Bultink. And you know what? He's carrying on going. He can try and see if there's any times he made up. Not seeing any purple sectors, any personal best. Dries Mousty, 6th fastest. That was a very good lap, wasn't it, from Dries?
Yeah, last lap, putting it up into, as I say, P6, making up 3 positions. What does Oliver Bultnik do? And he goes into the pits. That is it for qualifying. We're going to bring you the grid up in a few moments to give you that confirmation. You can see it on the left-hand side as well, but we'll be giving you that full confirmation moving forward in a few moments' time as we come through to the end of qualifying. I'm very, very excited. Yes, the gap at the front of a Bultnik for the Sim District GT3 and co, half a second clear. Very impressive indeed. But that mid-pack, the mid-pack is what we're going to be wanting to watch. That is going to be a very, very interesting start. It's going to be a very, very interesting race, I think, throughout. Because, as I mentioned, it's going to start ebbing and flowing. It's going to come up. We're then going to see it be brought down a little bit as well. With the pace is all going to change. And there's going to be bits of time. And to be fair, we've seen this again. We all know this with GT endurances. There's always going to be that bit of downtime. But again, that's all part of it, as the drivers are going to be making their way out on to the circuit in a few moments' time. We do have a full safety car formation lap, which does allow us a nice, good bit of time to get through the grid, of which here it is. So as you say, Oliver Bultnik for Sim District GT3 taking pole position will be starting the race. Bavo Fallen, Decimo.be, 4 tenths behind in P2. Jens Goossens in third with Jürgen van der Peer in P4. Stefan Kalbrecht in fifth with Dries Mulgi in sixth. Peter Lampkins takes 7th for RP Motorsport Verde, and then Semil Yagizoglu in the Dynamics Pink number 88 will take P8. Martin de Wit in P9 with Dimmy Deals taking rounding out to your top 10 for Duct Tape Racing, the number 13 Porsche. A little bit further down the order as well, in P11 we have Gregory Ranks in the Dynamic Simulators Red Car, Sebastian Pedersen, Tri Racing in P12, the number 4, Kim Bayet, Flemish Simsport in number 13, with Niels de Kuiper in Xenom Esports number 1 in P14, Jeremy de Bover, again apologies for these name pronunciations, we will get there in, don't worry, in the Mckay Challenge by DB, number 15, 103 Audi, Thies Vandenberg, Team Thies in number 16th, in 16th position, and then Ryan Parkins unfortunately taking the only and the lonesome spot in the Porsche Cup, leading for Porsche Sport. So again, it's going to be certainly a testing opportunity for them, very much so. You'll see all of the cars there ready to get underway, and in fact, you know what, I think we are on. Yes, we are. Formation lap happened, and formation lap is happening now. Ed, start of the race. Sometimes you have half of a formation lap. Sometimes you have a full formation lap. Sometimes you don't have a formation lap at all. What are things you need to look out for? What are things should drivers be trying to do now, especially when it comes to, getting the opportunity to do a full formation lap?
Well, first and foremost, the most important thing is don't hit each other. I've seen numerous
shout.
times in officials where sometimes drivers get a little bit overzealous and maybe bump into each other even before the race has actually officially begun. Or secondarily is try and warm the tyres up. Because this Zandvoort circuit, you are held quite close together. As you can see, the cars, they don't have room to try and work the tyres, get the heat into them, which could mean that the first lap you're a little bit more cautious than I think you were planning on doing so. You can see at the moment Olivier Bunting backs up the field and then bursts it through just to get some heat into those rear tyres. Also heat into the brakes, which is key, of course, on the run into the first corner. You want to have your brakes nice and warm. You don't want them cold, otherwise you'll just completely miss your braking point and sail off into the gravel on the tyre barriers at the end of the first bend. So that's something that drivers have to, of course, concern themselves with. You can see no drivers really opting to warm their tyres up. They just can't do it when you're so close together. And of course, they might not need to do too much because of the track temperature. We saw it was 39 degrees. I think it still is 39 degrees, which of course means track temperature being as hot as it is, you don't need to necessarily aim to get the heat in the tyres. That will just happen naturally because of how hot the racing surface is. Seeing the cars now make their way down towards the very technical right-hander turn 8. And then again, making their way down into turn 9. The track does open out a little bit here. The first sort of sector and a half, very, very narrow. Then opens up where you can see plenty of opportunities for overtakes to be made here. The track is so difficult to navigate, though. It's such a tricky circuit, Zandvoort, for the first round of an endurance series. Difficult enough racing 45 minutes around here in the standard GT3 length of race, but for 6 hours, drivers, teammates, they'll have to be at their very best in terms of not only their racing ability, but also the strategies they can bring out, because it's not the easiest circuit to overtake. We can see overtakes, of course, being made, but I think the real race could be won in the strategy battles, which is something I really love to see. So not long now until the first race. A new season is underway here in the DynamiXX Racing Simulators Endurance Championship. Plenty of action to come through. Multi-class technically, because we do have, of course, the lone Porsche Cup car being driven now by Ryan Parkins for Porsche Sport, qualified by Peter Mckay. And now just 2 cars to go. Safety car's about to come in, Dan. We can get this show well and truly on the road.
Yes, we will indeed. One more corner to go, and then we'll be getting away. You can see the safety car is now released almost, and we're now going to see everyone checking up. And then we're going to get underway. It is really who gets the jump first. Safety car will come in. There we go. And it is now up to Olivier Bultnick. When he goes, there it is. That is the green flag, and we are away. Bultnick has got a very, very good start straight away out of the gates. You see the green flag being waved. This is it. 6 hours. How is it going to end? We've actually got straight away. This is Jen Gustafsson for Zedem trying to get up the inside. He manages to get it all done straight away. Very, very impressive start. And capitalised on that opportunity. Didn't need a second invitation. Has now come down into turn 4. Seems to be all relatively good at the moment. Oh, that's a spin. Who was that? That was Niels
the Cooper, I think.
Yes,
Niels
not
the Cooper.
We'll see if we can get a bit of a replay on that a little bit later on. But again, I thought there was we go side by side then straight early on. That's a bit brave, isn't it? But they decide against it. That was Gregory Vanks and Sebastian Pedersen going possibly side by side for a brief moment there. A couple of positions have been gained, a couple of positions have been lost, but it's not all that much, to be fair. Everyone's taking it nice and easy, again, absolutely as you would want to. Last thing you want to do is to push the car too aggressively. It simply just will not work. But as it stands, Gregory Vanks is holding own at the moment. We see This is Martin de Wit taking a slightly defensive line. That doesn't seem to be hurting him too much, although to be fair, Max has got a very, very good run on the exit. Is there going to be a possible move here? I fear he's going to get squeezed. Yes, Martin de Wit pulls back in. But again, you can see that defensive move there costing. That is costing time. The gap already to Dimmy Deals and the Duct Tape Racing car ahead. Look at that, it's already 1.2 seconds. I think it might just be a bit early to race here. Just a little bit too early to race. You're just going to drop more time at this stage of the race. It's certainly not ideal.
Yeah, so plenty of stuff you can see. Olivier Wilting leading the field. Considerable margin there is actually down the inside, trying to defend is Gog, but he's not going to do it. He's going to get past Brown. Actually, no, that was the pair, wasn't it? Or Fallon trying to defend, and it was actually passed by our ahead, Jurgen van der Pers. That was a great move around the outside from Jurgen in the Dynamics Bell Speed car. Definitely got his tyres in the good window, whereas Fallon seemingly struggling just a touch in this early stage. We're going to have a look here on board, and it's just coming out of the final corner. It gets a massive moment. That is what slows him down and opens the door wide. That gets the BMW of Romeo van Gogh through. And then Jurgen van der Peer fancies another move as well, and into the first corner. Brass on the outside tyres. The tyres being loaded up most through that right-hander. Of course, he was always going to lose out on that occasion, even if he did have the more favourable inside line. So
that's
disaster
impressive
so far, but very well to keep it out of the wall. And here's a replay, actually, Dan, thank you, of Yagi Zoglu down the inside. Great little move from DynamiXX Racing Pink on, well, stablemate, shall we say, maybe not teammate, but stablemate, Reese Mujdi for DynamiXX Racing Simulators.
Yeah, we're seeing a couple of overtakes here as well. They're pretty committed overtakes. It's certainly something that we're not seeing. You know, there's some clear-cut indications of, you know, where a move is going to be made. Oh, that's Martin de Wit that's gone off. That's 2 positions lost straight away. Actually, no, that wasn't. That was... Wait, was that Martin? Couldn't quite... No, that was... apologies, that was Kim Bayet that lost 2 positions there. The Lewis Sims
Van der Wit. I think you were right. Yeah, it was Van der Wit in the Porsche. I think you were right there for WPR
yes.
Racing.
Don't know what I'm talking about.
Running a little bit too deep, wasn't he, into that second to last corner. Run wide on the run into the final bend, and unfortunately 290 losing 2 places, but they definitely seek to try and make those gains back up. Not been the best of starts though for WPR Racing, dropping back 5 places since their qualifying position, just inside the top 10 now in 14th place. Not what they were hoping for, of course, but never. It doesn't always go to plan, does it, Dan? I think you can definitely attest to that in endurance racing. Usually the best played plans to get completely chucked out the windows. We see amazing fighting again from Yagazoglu. Was that another move down the inside into turn 9?
I think it was.
Similar to what he did on his teammate. Let's have a look and see. Gets a good run. Such a good run through turn 8. Picks up the power nicely. Sends it down the inside. He loves that move. He's done it once before. Does it again. Vulnerable for a cutback, but of course the track then bends the other way. Means he can defend the inside line. All of a sudden, he can smell a move going through. And what's going on for Decimo B? Definitely not getting into the rhythm of things. Babo followed. Race car maybe not tuned up for the first few laps, getting those tires up to temperature. Maybe instead thinking about the later stages of the race and focusing more on tyre performance in the later stages of the stint. It's all about where drivers opt to make their time up. Again, running slightly deep. I think, if anything, actually, maybe not the car, but I think it's just early race jitters coming through. New team, of course, too. DynamiXX Racing Simulators Endurance Series. Oh, and here's the Kuiper. Ooh, just going for a move, getting into the side of Ryan Parkins.
So not what you want, is it?
Definitely not what you want at this this phase of the race, or any phase of this race. You don't want to be having collisions with anyone, especially not drivers that you want technically racing for class position. A bit of a twitch there from Baba Fallon. Going through turn 8 though, you just see the exit speed of his Porsche. He just gets so nice on the corner exit, maybe not so much on entry, but slow and fast out. It's what everyone is taught when they go into racing. Focus on the corner exit, not necessarily the corner entry. And I think now the rhythm is starting to come back through. You see Marathon start to get more into the rhythm now. Mistakes not coming through as much.
Yeah, it's a fair point. You've got to get everyone, they've got to settle into a rhythm. If you settle into a rhythm after 5 or 6 laps, you're going to start to pick up the pace a little bit. It's just going to start to become a little bit easier. We're already on lap 5, bear in mind. So, there is quite, obviously, there's a long way to go, bear in mind. We've gone through 6 minutes and 40 seconds, and we've seen some very, very good battle. Obviously, good overtakes straight away already, which is good. A lot of people have, seems that some drivers have got a good amount of confidence in the car at this stage of the race. Again, let us not say anything, because that could very well change. We simply do not know at this stage of the race. Long way to go. It seems, though, that the Dynamics Racing Simulator's number 6 is losing a little bit of time at the moment. We're going to have to see if that does continue and see what those gaps come to. But as it stands, one of the closer battles is this battle here. Dimmy Deals and Gregory Vanks that are having a good battle. Dynamic Simulators Red and Duct Tape Racing continue. And this battle's been going on for a few laps, actually. I'd say it's a battle. I'm not 100% sure almost, actually. I wonder if now this is going to be, and again, people that have heard me commentate before on any event, to be perfectly honest, they certainly know what I'm going to say, and fuel saving, I'm going to talk about this throughout this 6 hours. Fuel saving is very, very key. If you can save some fuel, or you can save a considerable amount of fuel, does it help you in the first hour? Debatable. Does it help you in the second hour? Again, debatable. Does it help you in the 4th hour? Yeah, a little bit. It will help you in the last hour, the last 30 minutes, where potentially, if you can save enough fuel, you may have to negate a stop entirely, or you will take significantly less fuel for any splash and dashes that you need. You've got to be committed to the... I think as well, Ed, you'll agree with me on this. You've got to be committed to that strategy if you are going to go for it, but it is certainly something that can be done.
Yeah, it is all about taking the minimum amount of fuel on your final stop if you even need to make that stop compared to those around you. It even works, to be fair, I'm not even in the 6-hour races, but even 45-minute races, the standard IMSA and VRS format where you race for about 45 minutes, fuel limited to 50%, so you have to take a pit stop. If you can just save that little bit extra fuel, take those couple of litres less, you find yourself actually gaining positions and really helping you in that last stage of the race. So, of course, drivers are going to try all they can to make up the positions. We have as well seen drivers that are really well prepared in this series opt to take their splash and dash early in the race, and that leaves themselves vulnerable to, say, if things happen to them, if they need to make unscheduled pit stops because of damage or various other things, throws the strategy completely down the wheel. It is a gamble. But sometimes when drivers make their pit stops early on in the race and they come out in fresh air, they can just pound out the laps and get themselves in great positions. Actually, towards the end of the race, they end up coming out on top. I don't think we'll see any drivers do that at this early stage of the championship. It's more about just getting a good start, not a brilliant start, I think, for a lot of drivers here. As we watch Thijs van den Bergen getting Thijs. He's trying to find a way through, isn't quite able to work out on Martin de Wit. Yeah, like you say, Dan, fuel saving is going to be paramount as well. Looking after the tyres, you can certainly drive the car in ways that will lend itself to coming good in the latter stages of the stint. Whenever drivers have expanded their tyres, battling, fighting with one another, they start to drop off a bit, especially for these first moments of the race. The first stint where you do use your tyres a little bit more, the track temperature is as hot as it will get to. Look at that, though. Ooh, Thijs van den Bergen. Very, very wide. Instead opting for a later apex. Doesn't get the drive out of the corner. You can see how much Thijs wants to get through. He's moving left, right, and centre, filling the rearview mirror of Martin de Wit. Going out through turn 7. Get a good run onto the apex. That was out nicely, and now into turn 8. So important to set up the move. Potentially into turn 9. De Wit holds firm, will stay in 14th place for the moment. The drive now down to the inside. It's opened up for him all of a sudden through turn 10. forces the bit to go wide. But that wide line allows you to power out, hold on. But I think Thijs van den Bergen is a very quick driver. It seems to be showing good pace at this stage of the race. And might be looking to make a move. And what would you do in this situation if you were Martin de Wit looking back behind you? Would you try and defend, try and stay in front, or would you maybe concede the position and see what you can do later on?
It's actually a good question, to be fair. I think at this point, if I was Van den Berg, I would possibly look at making a... I don't know, I'd almost try and make the move for a couple of laps at least, and if I knew realistically it wasn't doing it... I mean, arguably, if I was actually catching up, so say if they were both catching up to Mckay and there was no real movement, and it was just, both catching up and able to push forward, do you know what I would do? Again, I would just sit there and save the field, I'd just sit behind. I mean, looking at the moment, Van den Berg it seems to be quicker, just a little bit of a moment there going through turn 4. Just seems to be a little bit more sort of there or thereabouts. The pace just seems to be that little bit more for the number 11. So I would almost look at trying to make the pass, then pulling each other through. Similarly, though, if I was Martin de Wit and I knew that driving behind was a little bit quicker, I would then look at actually maybe just not defending that pass too much and letting it happen. Arguably, if anything, what's going to happen is they're going to be able to pull you along, and you're going to gain a little bit of time because of that. At the moment, we can see here the gap, the gap has now gone from 5 seconds to now 5.4, so the gap is going up, which is the wrong way. Both of us want it to come down, but that is not the case at the moment. Dimmy Deals and Gregory Vranks still having still relatively close. Again, there's no real sort of push for either drivers as it stands at the moment. Semil Yagazoglu, has he made another move? That's a brave move. Was that going into turn 1? It is indeed. Very, very good. I tell you what, Yagazoglu, the Dynamics pink car, very committed on the brakes, aren't they? That is absolutely astounding. Certainly, people to watch out for on the brakes. They're absolutely bandits on the brakes, which is great because heavy brake. There's a lot of heavy braking zones here for Zandvoort. And it really, if they've got a setup that works for them, that is really, really pushing that up, and it's really giving them an advantage. There has been a move up for P2, though. Let us have a look at the move here for P2. That was an aggressive move from the BMW. Robin van Gogh goes up the inside of Jens Gussens, and that puts Sim District GT3 by BMS Esport up into P2, the sister car to the number 44. So we are currently, we currently have a 1-2 for the Sim District GT3 with only 15 minutes gone. That means also as well, Robin van Gogh in that number 14 BMW has made up 3 positions already. Very, very impressive.
Yeah, very good. And it was a lot of car to stop, wasn't it, into the first corner? I think, if anything, maybe Jens Gussens was more intimidated out of that position rather than fully sent on the brakes, because when you see a car from that far back send a move and it's that big and it has to stop that quickly, apologies, it has to stop that quickly, it is really does put the jeepers up you. And you know what, Robin van Gogh, hats off to you. That was a excellent move. But Semil Yagazoglu, like you were saying earlier, been the absolute star of the show in this early stage. Brilliant.
Certainly so, yes, absolutely. Very, very true. Are we going to see another possible... No. Just saw Gregory Vranks having a bit of a look up the inside. I don't really know. Again, is it worth making those sort of moves? That's a bit... I mean, you can certainly do. You can try and... you can try and use it to put off the person that is ahead of you. Arguably, again, is it too early in the race? Probably so, I think, maybe. Again, that's from my personal saying. I'm obviously not driving, and the strategy also may help and may work for other people, and the other teams may have a certain strategy, and they want to try and get past people as quickly as they can. For me, again, it's all about just sort of sitting behind. Another replay here. This is Van den Berg that has gone off. Is this a bit too much of curb? Well, it's a bit too much of the exit curb, and a little bit more than that even. So the gap from Martin de Wit and Van den Berg has gone up. It's now 7/10 of a second from what it was just there, about 10.5. So the gap is certainly going up. The gaps that are coming down, though, are still... Whoa, that's a send. Woo! Wow, Jurgen van der Peer just gone, nope. He's decided that he wants that place all of a sudden. Yeah, can't argue with that. I want to see a replay of that. That was a fantastic move. I want to see how much of a send. That's a very, very late send. That is... I mean, how? Hang on a minute. How did Van der Peer stop the car? I don't actually know.
I'll tell you what, that was a statement, I think, if anything else, by Jürgen Van der Peer. Anything you can do, Samuel, I can do just as good, if not better. What a send that was into the chicane. You're going to see it here. It goes from so far back.
That was a clean move.
Catches him by surprise. It was a clean move. Takes the corner nicely. And that was... You could see the rear of the car almost twitched a little bit on Jürgen Van der Peer. It's basically on the limit of the brakes of what he can get away with. Even with ABS, you can sometimes it's better to brake just outside of that range, and I think that was what we saw, the rear slightly stepping out as the ABS kicked in a touch. But wow, that was absolutely brilliant stuff from everyone involved there. Jürgen Van der Peer, I definitely think there's no team orders between the DynamiXX entrance, DynamiXX Bell Speed, DynamiXX Racing Pink. It was absolutely cracking racing to watch, as we still see Thijs van den Berg battling, trying to find a way through on Martin de Wit. It's not working out just yet. Yep, still around about half a second, 0.6 ebbs and flows as the lap moves on. Having a look as well throughout the rest of the field. It's just a lot of close racing, as you'd expect in this opening sort of 20 minutes, maybe opening hour of the race. Maybe we'll start to see drivers commit to their strategies now, though, in terms of fuel saving and opting for alternative strategies.
Yeah, we might start seeing that. Actually, that's a good point. I wonder if we are going to see that a little bit. Yagizoglu has actually got past Van der Peer again. So we're just going to quickly search for that replay, and then we're going to bring that back up for you. We actually had in the chat as well, Hendrik de Grave saying Ricardo-style send. I mean, that certainly was, wasn't it? I wonder if... I certainly wonder if Yagizoglu has actually returned the favour. Whoa! That was a moment. Wow. Okay, literally coming into these almost the same corner. There was no lunge that time there from Van der Peer as he composed himself. We've also got, there was a movement as well. Gregory Vanks past Dimmy Deals. Is this a bit of a cut back? No, round the outside instead. Very impressive. Very committed move. No mess, no fuss. Last late breakers. Yeah, jobs are good. That was a clean move there. Good commitment there around the outside. I like that a lot. This battle is still going on, and if anything, it's getting closer. It's certainly starting to get closer. There we are. That's it from the aerial perspective. Yagizoglu has pulled away a little bit. The gap is about 0.6 of a second. That will come down a little bit going forward down into turn one. Although I think with these sort of medium to high speed corners, I wonder if the number 88 has actually got a little bit of run now. I think this could be the break that is needed here. I could be wrong though. And it seems to be that Bavo Follen is very, very good on the brakes, as is Jürgen Van der Peer. And that gap has once again come down. Could this be possibly that the number 88 is also... Again, are they driving at full pace? I mean, considering what we've seen at the start of the race, some hyper aggression from that car, it seems that they may have just backed off a little bit. We're talking maybe 2 or 3, 5-10% at the moment. It just doesn't look like they're pushing the car as hard as they could. So they've certainly got a bit of time left in the tank, from what it looks like anyway. Yeah,
it's all about settling into the rhythm, trying to roll with the punches and not get knocked out, as we've seen plenty of moves being sent on that number 88, and that number 88 sending plenty of moves itself. You can definitely think that Babo is going to be looking after the car, maybe not fully sending it. Just like you can see here now, easily into the chicane, no worries coming through. Having a look as well, actually there is some I think as well from battles that we haven't been looking at too much. I think if you come down to the battle for 10th place, there's a fair few cars involved in that one, several cars all within a second of one another. You can see duct tape racing there number 13. In behind him, Sebastian Pedersen, Try Racing. And behind him, Jeremy DeBova. So plenty of cars all up together on the same bit of tarmac. Gap's fairly close. You can see them all sneaking on through. 5 cars all together on the track. And I think if there's some drivers that send moves on one another, it could all start to explode in action like we've been seeing. That was just further up the road. That battle of 4 closing down now, each of them under half a second.
Indeed, very true. I mean, it's again, it's ebbing and flowing, isn't it? You know, the gaps are coming up to half a second, then they're going back down again, then they're coming back up, then they go to over a second. You know, Peter Lemkins, actually, I've just noticed, has just been caught. There is Peter. So, obviously not caught, but the gap once was around about 1.2 seconds, and it's now under a second. So we are seeing that time start to come down. It's gone up again. You can see this is where the ebbs and flows sort of comes in. There isn't necessarily one. There isn't one specific area where each car is better. There isn't a throughout the course of a lap. Not one car stands out across the entire lap. You know, the Porsche, the Lamborghini, the BMW, the Audi. They all have slightly different traits. Arguably, the Audi and Lamborghini are the same car to a certain degree, but even then, the chassis is slightly different. The way that the balance is slightly different as well. There are minute little differences here, which again, we can see that within the car. You can see the gap extend in some areas. You can see it then reduce in others, which is why I also like multi-class, well, not even multi-class racing, but it's why I like GT3s racing and the like. It's because you don't necessarily need what has gone on just up ahead, or what has gone on just up ahead.
Oh, and I think actually that was exactly holding on. Jurgen van der Peer centre move. Almost got the position, was ahead for a brief moment, but well done. I think we were saying maybe they're going to cool off, maybe they're going to try and work together or not race at full chat. I don't think that's the case anymore. No. They're still battling out of fun when they're so close together. This is the stage of the race where you want to make up positions, where you want to go for the gaps and take the opportunities when they come to you. If you're a racing driver and you see a gap, you don't go for it. You're not really a racing driver, as they'll say. On the inside, Bama Folland looking for a move. There wasn't really one there and had to back out. Losing touch a bit, but not enough to really be concerned. Still within half a second of Van der Peer and Jagzoglu. Here's a replay of actually what happened here, Dan.
Yeah, this was Jurgen van der Peer. Okay, this was the original send that we saw. And then, as we're going through, right, here we go. Here we go. This is coming into turn 1. So a very good run for Van der Peer, as we see. And that is Jagzoglu. Has to take the outside, but Van der Peer goes wide. That was why we saw that there. And then Jagzoglu just goes, well, thank you very much. I'll just retake that. It very, very good there, to be honest, from the number 88. Because that car there, the Dynamic Pinks car, it's very, very easy to get sucked in to a driver that starts to pull away from you or tries to extend the lead or, for example, or, you know, simply pulls away or whatever it may be. So it's very, very easy to, you know, get lost in it and actually follow the car that's trying to overtake you and follow them through and follow them off. So very, very good stuff there. The fact that that was not the case and that didn't happen. It certainly could have done, but, you know, Jagzoglu kept his cool and just continued to run as you normally would. It actually makes for a very, very good point. If a move is going to happen, and you know realistically that you aren't going to be able to save it, there's no point in trying. As we see, that is, or possibly as well, Van der Peer really, really trying. But in actually, do you know what? I think he may have lost himself a position possibly, because we see Bavo Folland's going to try and go up the inside going down. Is it going to be? I don't think it is, because Van der Peer has a good amount of drive at the exit. It's a tricky corner to overtake on, that is, because simply you've just got, there's so much, oh, that's a bit of a lunge there. Is it going to be Dries Milji? No, decides against it, but very, very close. Does Bavo Folland get to the back of the number 1 Porsche? It's a tricky corner to overtake that one originally, isn't it? Because it's simply so open. You can just open the wheel, just apply the throttle, and the car will go. Bavo Folland has certainly made his presence known, hasn't he? He wants that position. Arguably, if these keep battling as they are, and all the drivers keep battling in the way that they are doing so, the battle for P4, I mean, that might even extend from 4th. At the moment, it's from 4th to 7th. It might actually extend from 4th to 12th at one point. Because again, as we see, that's a position. Van der Peer goes at the inside. Ooh. There is no way for Yagizoglu to go through that time around. So there we see the DynamiXX pink car losing once again a position. But Van der Peer goes a little bit wide. That may have opened the door. Has it? No, it hasn't. This is going to... We can already see Peter Lemkens. Have a look at that gap. The gap is 2.5 seconds at the moment. It's 2.2 seconds now. Oh, this isn't going to take long. If drivers are battling as they are now, and this battle is continuing to go forward for another maybe 5 laps, that gap's just going to fly down. Then we're going to see a battle for P4 that essentially will stretch all the way to 12th.
Yeah, this is really, really hotting up here. The track temperatures are high still as well. Wow, follow on. You can see on board that he's looking to try and make the moves. He kept trying to come through still 39 degrees on the track. I'll tell you what, that was a great move by Van der Peer. Really sent it, didn't he, into the first corner and kept himself safe from the cutback. Baffa Follen as well, actually trying to send a move on Yagizoglu. Also actually prevented that number 88 from taking back 4th place because the car was occupying the place that he wanted to go into for a cutback manoeuvre. So Follen really looking to try and make gains, and this is the Bavo Follen that we saw in qualifying. This is the Decimo B car that put it up towards the front of the field. I think, wasn't it, 2nd on the grid for the number 10 car. This is the car we're starting to see now coming through this stage of the stint. Halfway through, nearly about halfway through the stint at least. Speaking of, actually, as we come to the halfway point of this stint, we don't want to peel our eyes away too much from this fight, but again, you can see Thijs van den Berg closing into Martin de Wit. Can't quite get close enough into turn 1 to make the position, make that place up, so instead we'll opt to stay in behind. But also, been focusing a lot on all of these cars. We haven't focused on, well, 2 cars that I'd like to have a look at. Of course, first of which is the car in first place, Olivier Bulting. It's interesting, GT3 Vibe Esports, setting very quick lap times each and every time through. Fastest driver on the track through sector 3 this lap, so could be another strong lap, even on sort of, well, 30-minute-old tyres, if you include, of course, the formation lap. Those tyres have done 30 or so minutes, and of course means that the stint might be slightly earlier than expected because they did go one full lap around the circuit when the time wasn't ticking. I'll tell you what, nothing can really seem to stop Olivier Bulting up at the front of the field. A very strong showing so far by the 44 GT3 BMS Vibe Esports. And then you've got the other BMS Esport car, Robin van Gogh, making it, well, a 1-2 for the team up at the front of the field. 2nd place, able to hold off Jens Goossens. That gap has been, well, consistently around about 0.6 of a second. Sometimes it goes higher, sometimes it goes lower, but it's always been at least under a second between Robin van Gogh and 3rd place Jens Goossens. You can see there in the number 16 car in 3rd place. Then the other car I wanted to have a look at, in a class of their own, much like race leaders who are in a class of their own, but this is more literally rather than figuratively. Ryan Parkins in the Porsche Sport 9 car. In fact, we can actually see, Dan, if you want to talk us through a lap in this Porsche Cup car.
Oh, why not? Here we go. So Ryan Parkins in the Porsche Sport number 9. Coming down to turn 1, find the braking point on the left-hand side around about the 100 board, flying it down to gears. Bear in mind, you have got to keep an eye out for the track. You see a slightly wider line with a later apex. Bringing the car and utilising all of the curb on the left-hand side. Turns 2, 3 and 4. Very tricky complex here. Don't carry as much speed through turn 3 as you normally would. It's focusing on the exit going into turn 4. Hugging the inside here, you can see a little bit out and then comes back in to take it again. Another late apex. Nice flowing section here, completely flat out. Even in a Porsche Cup car, you've got to get your turning points right though, otherwise you will understeer wide. Coming down now, fast right-hander. Apologies, the corner names and the corner numbers have eluded me from the moment. Again, you can see the late apex, the late turn in, and that slightly later apex there. Once we go in, second half of the lap now. First half of the lap has gone. The second half, slightly slower in this couple of these sections now. Again, you can see the late turning. Misses the apex ever so slightly. Not too much, though. A couple of different lines you can take through this next left-hander. You can take a slightly wide line, cut in early, and then hug the inside and then push it out. Or as we can see Ryan Parkins do, making use again of the good traction that this Porsche does have in a straight line. And on the corner exit, later apex. Slowest portion of the track now as we come through. It's very, very slow right-handed into a slightly longer left-hander, still a medium speed corner. And again, you find the exit when you need to. Don't get on the throttle too soon. Going down, last 2 corners left to go. Very, very fast. A couple of corner complexes here. Again, you can take a little bit more curb on the inside if you want. Sometimes, though, it doesn't actually quite work in your favour. And then we can see there, the last corner. In a GT3, it is flat out. In a Cup car, might not be so. So you can just hear in a slight lift as the car enters into the corner. And again, you utilise that rotation going into the second half of the corner, down into the apex, and then you get on the throttle, and away you go. Well, that was a lap in the Cup car. Maybe later on we'll see a lap in the GT3 car, so you actually be able to see a comparison difference. The line's going to be pretty much the same, I would imagine. The braking points are roughly going to be maybe a little bit later in a GT3 car. Arguably, though, majority is going to be the same. It simply is just going to be a bit faster.
Yeah, it is, and good to go on board with Porsche Sport. Like to give the spotlight to as many drivers as we can, as many cars as we can. Of course, they are in a class their own, so we might not see them too much, as we've got excellent racing to watch in the GT3s now. As Zoglu is now having to go defensive rather than on the offensive from the car in front. And this is it. This is Barrow full on at his best that we saw in qualifying.
Oh no!
Going through with this contact. There was a touch. Thankfully, there's no collection from Egizoglu. Has to wait for all the other cars to go through. That is heartbreaking. He's lost so many places. And I think we need to have another look at that replay to figure out exactly what happened. It looked like it was just the coming together, the cars aiming for the same bit of track. And because the circuit gets so narrow, look at Bavo Fallon. He was covered off a bit late. Decided to go for a late move himself around the outside. And then lined up with a good exit. Tried to find a way past. That was the lap before, I think. So we can try and see what happens the next time through. You could already see that the defensive driving was coming through from Egizoglu. And I think if we can, Dan, I'm not sure if there is another instance we can find.
There certainly is. We've got a couple of replays to look at, however. So this is Martin de Witt, and that is... Oh, dear. Into the barrier. That's a nasty hit from Martin de Witt. That has cost him significant amount of pace, I would imagine.
Think Thijs Vandenberg is out of the race, actually. I think there was a hit to the rear suspension of that Team Thijs car. We'll want to see if there's another look. Maybe watch on board.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
The car is completely messed up at the rear. I was wondering if there was a touch just on that right-hand rear side. And I think it was on the worst possible spot, right on that rear wheel side. And that has effectively, unfortunately, ended his race. That is the contact. And to give Fallon credit, he's on the inside. He can't go much further on the inside without hitting the curb, and that would only send him further left as a result. I think that was just two cars racing fairly close. Yeah, maybe from other camera angles.
If we can. So as we're going in from the blimp camera angle, you can just see here. No, I think arguably Fallon, again, you look at it from that perspective, it looked like Fallon had a bit more on the inside. It's just as the car was turning, maybe just a fraction too late on the turn in. Arguably, yes, could Egizoglu go a little bit wider? Certainly so. But the problem is when you get to that sort of like, when you get that far out, you just become, you know, there's just too much. There's too much dirty marbles on the track, and the track just hasn't got any grip there. So big shame there, and we're certainly going to see Samil move through the field again. The pace was absolutely fantastic, and I'm sure that is going to continue, and the pace will certainly move forward. Big shame though there, and I mean again, you know, 35 minutes into the race, it's, you know, a little bit too I think a little bit too early to maybe have some of these incidents. And I'm sure drivers will also be actually frustrated at themselves as well, because they know, again, it's a long race. You know, it's a long race to go through. You don't want to be able to have these sort of moments here, because it really does hurt you quite considerably here when it comes through. You know, the car just... Well, what you've actually got to probably carry as well now is you've got to carry damage for the remainder of the race. You may be able to get it repaired in the pits. However, you know, regardless whether there are fast repairs or not, etc., either way, it's going to hurt you in some way, shape, or form, either on the circuit or off the circuit.
I think, having a look at the car and the way it's driving, the sector times that are coming through, Degasoko's gotten away with it. There doesn't seem to be any damage on board his car, so he's a little bit fortunate, you could say. And as well, looking at the time he's lost, Bravo Fallon is only around about 9.5 seconds up the road, so he hasn't really lost out too much in the grand scheme of things, with best part of 5.5 hours still to go in this race. There's so much opportunity to make up. Less than 10 seconds. I mean, that's already the gap between first and second is more than 10 seconds, and we're only 30 minutes gone, 35 minutes, 37 minutes gone. So I definitely think it's not all over yet from Egazoglu. You can definitely make up those positions. Maybe, though, they'll be slightly set back, and towards the end of the race, you could have a bit of extra spice coming through with drivers out of position, having to fight their way up through the field. Having a look at Nils de Kuiper, actually, who is kind of unfortunately by himself. We haven't seen too much of the Xenon Esports 2 car. We've seen his teammate Jens Goossens further in front, of course, in third place, chasing down Robin van Gogh. But this is the time just to look at the other Lamborghini for that team. Xenon Esports just rounding out the final couple of corners. And from what I'm seeing on the track, it doesn't seem to be he's doing anything too wrong, to be fair. Just nice and stable. Gets himself in good positions to capitalise on drivers that either make mistakes or get involved in incidents such as, well, such was the case between Martin de Wit and Thijs Vandenberg.
Yes, very, very true. We've got a couple of, again, you can see these battles sort of move forward, and they do, will, like I said, they are going to sort of ebb and flow. Unfortunately, obviously, Nils de Kuiper doesn't actually have anyone to battle as it stands at the moment. But again, you know, long way to go. No one's actually pitted yet. Bar Vandenberg, who is actually back out on circuit, I am pleased to report. And in fact, there is Vandenberg there. I'm going to quickly roll on board. Are we going to see some steering damage? No, I think you know what, that's it all done.
He's taken his one fast repair. Drivers of this race, forgot to mention at the start, because there's been so much action going on, so much excitement in qualifying and in stage race, that drivers do, of course, have one fast repair limit for this race, which allows the racing to stay as close, and means that if there are incidents, drivers don't sort of have so much preparation and practice wasted within the first 30 minutes. If they get involved in an incident, they can still carry on going and get something from the evening. So Thijs Vandenberg, his focus is going to be, of course, on, after nursing that car back into pits, getting it repaired and back out onto the circuit and try to make up places. As we can see, actually, Jeremy de Bova in the pits, one of the two Audis going through. And is that a scheduled pit stop? Having a look at the last lap time, doesn't seem to be something that was scheduled, so perhaps something's gone on with that Audi.
We'll have to see how long that Jeremy de Bova
actually
sits in the pits.
He's been black flagged. I want to try and figure out what has happened, but Jeremy de Bova has been black flagged, so something has gone on. We're going to try and figure out exactly what has gone on, but that is certainly strange indeed. I'm not sure if that was black flagged by... It was black flagged by admins as well. It wasn't done by iRacing itself. Oh dear.
Someone, Zora, yeah, as you say, something has certainly happened. I mean, nothing's come up. Nothing's come up for us as to why the black flag would have happened. I don't know if it was a possible track infringement or something along those lines, but yeah, something that we're not 100% sure of. We will hopefully find out that information for you a little bit later on. Meanwhile, though, battle for P7 currently being led by Peter Lemkins, who is in 7th place, has Gregory Vranks and Dimmy Deals right behind. This is certainly a battle that's cracking on. Don't forget Sebastian Peterson for Try Racing, who is in P10. Last lap times for everyone, pretty even Stevens, to be perfectly honest. We did have Dimmy Deals that was the fastest out of this little battle here, with Peter Lemkins and Gregory Vranks. Sebastian Peterson is doing almost identical lap times as well. So I wonder if we're going to start to see, well, arguably all he needs to do is actually, and I think he has already, Sebastian Peterson has actually just now tagged onto the back of Dimmy Deals, and that is going to allow the the Porsche to pull through. Yagazoglu is only about 3 seconds behind, so don't count him out either. There might be even a little bit of battling going on here, possibly between Gregory Vance and Peter Lemkins as they come now down second half of the last third of the lap. Porsche is good on the brakes, that we do know that for sure, but no move as of yet. I wonder at the moment, again, well, Sebastian Peterson has lost a couple of tenths now to Dimmy Deal. This is where we're starting to see, we've actually just been told as well on the broadcast, Ed, and there we go, some confirmation for you. It was a race start infringement.
So start infringement, that can be pretty much many things, can't it? Between, obviously, sometimes they have set start zones, sometimes it's, yeah, definitely intriguing. Of course, you had to adhere by the rules. If you don't, you get punished, as we've just seen from Jamie Bover. Sent him towards the back of the field, unfortunately. Was having a decent race up until that point, but of course, still plenty of time, like we've been saying, to make up places and come back from all these setbacks, be it self-inflicted or otherwise. We're going to have a look now at mind of it for DPR Racing. Almost a carbon copy of the incident we saw him suffer earlier on. This time, keeps it out of the wall. So good stuff from mind of it. Only just, yeah, you can't get much closer without fitting, well, any less than a cigarette paper in between him and the wall, but you know, he did a very good job keeping it safe. But maybe now it's a sign that the tyres are starting to go. Maybe there's a little bit of damage as well affecting the car performance, and give you guys just to take it a little bit easier through that sector for the next few laps.
Just have a look at this battle here, though. Again, Peter Lemkins still leading this battle. I wouldn't say it's a battle at the moment. It's more so just a few, as it stands at the moment, it's just cars driving in close proximity. There's no real aggression being shown to either one of these drivers at the moment, or to one of these drivers or anything like that. A bit of a wiggle there for Sebastian Peterson. Manages to keep it all in check, though. What is actually happening at the front here? Babo Follen versus Van der Peer. They go through side by side through turn 1, turn 2 side by side as well. What's going to happen through turn 3? Possible. I thought it was going to be a carbon copy of what happened there with Van der Peer and Yagazoglu, but nothing this time around. And Bavo Follen. Let's have a quick look at the replay on that entire move. So there we go. We can see Bavo Follen tries to go up the inside of turn 1. Doesn't quite manage it. Arguably here, it's a little bit tricky. I think they actually did the wise thing there and backed out a little bit. You know, probably, yes, could you have gone through there a little bit faster and go on the outside, possibly through turn 4? I mean, it would certainly be a brave move, but certainly not impossible. Although I do think that was the wise decision there. Just back out of it and then, you know, compose yourself and retake the position, possibly at a later time. Again, it's always good. It's never a bad thing having a bit of a look and having a go. But I almost think it was a wise move there to back out, because you know you've got another 5 and a quarter hours left to go. There's plenty of opportunity to make some position, to make some gains.
Yeah, definitely. So coming now to the stage where drivers, their focus will shift now from maybe the racing that they're involved with on the track and more the racing that will happen off the track in terms of in the pit lane, in terms of the strategy, what they are going to do. Drivers feeding back to their teammates, what the tyres are feeling like, what their lap times are doing, if they feel like they'd be quicker on fresh tyres, if they'd be quicker to not take tyres and do less pit stops. It's when it all comes through. So we're going to have a look at drivers. I'd imagine the lap times have stayed relatively strong, relatively stable across the board for most of the drivers. They're only, well, by and large, maybe a second, maybe half a second off of what their best lap time has been in this race. Of course, that is down to a multitude of factors. Fuel coming out, track with more rubber on board. I think we should be seeing most drivers opting not to take tyres on this time, maybe keeping the same driver in the car as well. And then opting to focus on the real questions that will happen probably at the next pit stop, which is, do we take tyres and stop and replace them twice, or only replace them once at the 3-hour mark? That's the question. Look at Babo Follen. He is really starting to ask questions himself. This time of Jurgen van der Peer and his defence coming into, like you said, the slowest part of the circuit, Dan. I tell you what, Jurgen van der Peer looks so strong through that section. He's probably where he's making up most of the time compared to everyone else on the track. Jurgen van der Peer as well. Not got really anyone in front other than some back markers, as you can see. This is Thijs van den Berg going for a move on Jeremy de Bova. MSC challenged by DB1, the car that we saw penalised for start infringements. Held further back. Now getting involved in a bit of a scrap. This is definitely not what Jurgen van der Peer will want to see in front, considering he's got Babo Follen breathing rather heavily down his neck.
Yes, certainly so. Absolutely, very, very true indeed. You've got to be, got to have eyes in the back of your head at this point, to be fair, because you've really got to be on the ball as to, who is going to be coming up behind you, if anyone's going to be coming up behind you. Again, it's very, very tricky indeed. So, two battles though are raging on. What do you do in this situation? It's a bit tricky there. I mean, arguably as well, there are two battles going on, so it should be, again, the responsibility of the faster driver to get through in a safe and clean manner. However, at the same time, you don't want to make it too difficult for the drivers that are trying to get past if you are the back marker. Now, you have to play these things into consideration. You have to take so many different factors into consideration. What has happened here? Oh, I thought Van der Peer was going to have a bit of a move. You know what, Babo Follen, was there a slowdown? I reckon there must have been a slowdown for Van der Peer, because he just sort of backed out. There we go. That is Vandenberg that goes wide. The next person is Jeremy de Bova. I really don't know what that was.
I can't see anywhere on the track where he would have picked up that slowdown. It might have just been not wanting to get him on the scrabble. You can just see it's held around the outside. Full on fighting through. This is where we saw contact before.
Oh, this was the same one, actually. Sorry.
It was close. So yeah, that was, I think it was more just down to, this was the move. Going into chicane.
Was it actually?
I think it was just him seeing the position. He could see that there was a lot of drama up ahead with back markers. I think he was just wanting to stay safe, getting behind, and then maybe focus on trying to make up the position elsewhere. Because for me, I don't know if there's anywhere where he could have really picked up the slowdown.
No, you're right. I mean, it did actually look like from one of those camera angles, it looked like the back end was actually, I don't know whether we saw Van der Peer make a small error. It looked like maybe just the wheel on the grass, which cost a little bit of time. Obviously, the wheels are spinning up, and you haven't got any traction, you haven't got any forward momentum at that point. I wonder that could be it. I'm not 100% sure, though, to be perfectly honest. I'm not 100%. Either way, position has been conceded, and the gap is now 8 tenths per second, so that's that. A little bit further down the order, though, we do have Yakazoglu, who has pushed past Kim Bayet at some point. That move has passed. Although, again, I'm not 100% sure where that move... Actually, no, the move was never done. That was... apologies, yeah. So, Yakazoglu was always ahead of Kim Bayet at the moment. The gap, though, from himself... So, Samil Yakazoglu in the DynamiXX pink car, the number 88, to Sebastian Peterson, the number 4 tri-racing car. The gaps have stayed relatively similar at the moment. The gaps are 3.2 seconds. Have a quick look at that and see what they come down. So just keep an eye on that on the left-hand side of your screen. As we see Kim Bayet have a little bit of a move, a little bit of a look. Nothing really there that was going to happen. But again, it's worth having a bit of it to try and upset the car in front and try and put them out of sync and out of balance. Robin van Gogh, though, hasn't been able to shake Jens Gussens off at the moment. The gap is very much still there. As you can see, it's around about half a second to 0.6 of a second. And yeah, it's showing no signs of extending at the moment. We've seen that Gussens has had some really, really good pace. The Lamborghini is strong here that we've seen. It seems to be very, very strong. Olivia Boltney, though, I've just had a look. Look at the gap. 15 seconds is the gap. Oof. 15 seconds. That's absolutely madness. On the basis of that, we're going to see well over a minute per... We're going to see well over a minute, we're talking here, of a gap before the session comes to a close.
That is, of course, Olivia Bolting's teammates are just as fast as Olivier. That's the real question, isn't it? He might not be in line with his teammates, or scary thought, they might even be faster. I don't know why they wouldn't want to put their fastest driver in the car first, but you never know. Sometimes drivers do up for different strategies. Sometimes they want their safest driver in at the start to make sure there aren't any incidents and accidents that occur. Look at that from Thijs van den Berg. Takes advantage of a slight misstep from the Audi of Jamie de Boven, but isn't able to capitalise. You thought that, of course, the Porsche with all of its, oh my word, keep it safe everybody, don't collide. Oh dear, that was a very, very scary moment, I think, from Thijs van den Berg. New race overalls, please. He's already already been involved in an incident earlier on this race, didn't he? It was a car and copy into that corner, the car in front making a mistake into turn 3, and then coming across turn 4, colliding with the wall, and then colliding with himself. Thankfully, no collisions were had between either himself or the wall that time by. Thijs van den Berg is safely up now into P15, P16 on the overall standings. Around Parkins there for Porsche Sport, just up the road. Have a nice, safe race, all sort of, I guess, by his lonesome, but I'm sure he won't be complaining too much. He's in one of the most exciting and fun cars to drive on the iRacing service, of course, the new Porsche Cup car. What a car that is to drive, and I can tell you, even if you are by yourself, it is definitely not too disappointing, I think, to drive it around Zandvoort. Probably one of the better circuits for that car as well, to really push the envelope, push the limits of the car of the machinery. As we now come to, I think, the 55-minute marker, when we might start to see some drivers come in for their first stops, maybe thrown a little bit out of rhythm, of course, based on the full pace lap that was done. Obviously meant that more fuel is used on this stint than would be used on pretty much every other.
Yes, as you say, pit stops are going to be not too far around the corner now. But up until that point, we've still got some pretty heavy battles kicking off here. Gregory Vanks and Peter Lemkens. The battle has come once again. It's come down, and the gap has grown. The gap has shrunk from about a second now to about 0.3 of a second. It was at one point. It was. I thought a move was going to be made. Actually, Peter Lemkens was going to have to concede the position to Vanks, but that was not the case. But there is still plenty of time left to go. But all the while, both of these people are battling. That's going to allow. Have a quick look. That's going to allow Dimmy Deals to catch up. That's going to allow Sebastian Peterson to catch up once again. And then that 4-car battle will certainly start to materialise once again. Obviously, until the first round of pit stops come through. And then we really don't know what's going to happen after that. What strategies are people going to do? Are they going to take tyres? They're not going to take tyres. I can't imagine anyone taking tyres. I would be really surprised, even with the new tyre model for the GT3s. I would be very surprised if they took tyres. I just can't see it myself, personally. I could very well be wrong. That's just from experience within the sim would tell me. I think double stint is an absolute minimum. Even if you're not 100%, I think the main thing as well, even if you're not 100%, you feel beneficial with it on circuit. It doesn't matter if it's on circuit or not. It's more so the benefit that you actually find in the pit lane, and the benefit that you have of saving the time in the pits. A little bit further down the order, though, we do have Kim Bayat trying to make a move on Yagazoglu, but nothing as of yet. Little bit of a it's a little bit of a look, but there wasn't really much that Bayet could have done, actually, at that point. Again, and Yakazoglu had really, really good drive, which the Porsche does have good drive. We know that, and it can really put its power to the rear wheels because it's got so much weight over the rear wheels. Couple that with the aero and the diffuser, it's got a lot of grip under the, propelling that car forward, especially on corner exit. And we can see that again. Look at that, 0.6 of a second. Gap has once again started to increase. The gap has actually decreased, though, from Yakazoglu to Pedersen. Gap was 3.3. It's now, what, 2.9, 2.8? So that's starting to go up and then come back down again and starting to ebb and flow. Calm before the storm at the moment. Maybe after the first pit stops, you might see drivers at least have a bit of an idea of what their pace is, what the driver's pace is around them, and then they might even start adjusting their strategy based on that.
Yeah, that's the thing, is what drivers do. Do they react to one another? Do they stick to their own plan? What on earth will they be thinking is the optimal play, the optimal plan to go for? I don't know what you do in that situation then. If, say, those around you opt for alternative strategies, do you change your plan to account for it? Would you stick to what you and your team have discussed, even if maybe things have changed since then?
Sorry, it seemed to be you broke up for a second there, Ed. Do you want to repeat that question?
I was just going to ask, what would you do in a situation? Because, of course, drivers will all come into this with a set plan of what they're going to do. But if the cars that they're racing with do something different than they're expecting, do you reckon it'd be wise for them to change their strategy up a bit to react? Or would it be smarter to just stick to your guns and go to the plan?
That's a good question, actually. That's a very, very good question. As we see, is that the Dynamics pink car? Yes, it is. The Dynamics pink car are first in. I would
driver change.
It is, actually, yes. Jesse Hendricks now comes in to the car. And then haven't moved as of yet. So I wonder, maybe tyres. Looking at actually how long the pit lane is. Yeah, 42, 43 seconds. Yeah.
It's up on the jacks. There goes the tyres. If you change the driver, usually you change the tyres.
Actually, a good point. That's a very, very good point. I didn't think of that. I feel a bit silly now. That was that should have been a caveat that I said. Yes, if you change drivers, certainly change tyres. If you're not going to change the tyres, I can imagine a double stint on the tyres would be beneficial. I could be wrong, though. Let me know in chat, everyone, actually, if I'm talking absolute rubbish or if I'm actually talking something of sense. I would stick with strategy at this point. It's too early to try and change it now. If you were going to stick with the strategy of fuel saving, you'd want to do that. See a couple of cars come in. That's Gregory Vance that now comes into the pit lane. Yeah, if you're going to go for like a fuel saving strategy, your fuel saving strategy, or if you wanted to change it, you might be able to get away with it now for it to make a decent benefit come the end of this race. Are you going to really want to change it too much? I don't know. I've been in both situations where you want to adjust. You want to stick with your strategy as much as you can, realistically. So you want to have a plan A, but then you want a plan B that is slightly different. It's almost scenario based rather than a complete strategy changed. What you do is you develop a strategy and then you start to build different scenarios and what those scenarios mean. For example, a crash, 30-second repair, any penalties that come through, and then you start adjusting it based off that. That is done on the fly, obviously, but arguably you want to try and stick with your strategy as much as you can. We're seeing a lot of people come into the pits now. We've seen Bram van Jutven from the Dynamic Simulator red car. That's another driver change. Niels de Kruiper doesn't driver change at the moment. Robin van Gogh comes in, as does Jens Goossens. So they are both now into the pit lane as well.
Tell you what, that's a very good pit entry by Roman van Gogh. You can see the gap he has to Jens Goossens on the run into the pit lane. So Roman van Gogh, very good on pit entry. Gets stopped in the box nice and safely as well. Switches out the driver, so Stefan Kalbrecht comes into the car. Other drivers coming out of the pit, some drivers coming in. Oh, this is very interesting to see now what the likes of Olivier Bultzink is going to do. Is he going to perhaps stay in for another stint, keep the tyres on? Or is the track temperature just that little bit too high to want to risk it? The lap times have seemingly been steady for him. You can see his best lap was the 35.4. Last lap was the 36.2. So he's not losing more than a second a lap. think it could be smart to keep these tyres on. But of course, what do I know? There's a reason why I'm in the comms box. I'm not actually out on the racetrack here, and so maybe it is just the track temperature's a little bit too hot to think about double stinting the tyres. Garrett makes his way out onto the pit exit. Kimber and Peter Lemkins. Jens Goosens as well on his way out of the pit lane. And we can see, hopefully, what the gap is. Gap seemingly, well, it's being a bit shuffled around a bit. Olivier Bilting stays out, so he's been able to save loads of fuel. And that's the thing we noticed last season, actually, in the GTE, in the Ferrari. Olivier Bilting, and to be fair, the whole of the that team last season was so good at saving fuel, looking after the car, and really helping them towards the latter stages of the race. And while they were able to take so many wins, just not because they were so quick, but because they were really good and made the strategy work for them by looking after the car, saving the fuel. And we can see that gap has opened up between Albrecht and Goosens. Gap now 3 seconds. Was, well, half a second, wasn't it, earlier? But that run into the pit lane was so strong that all of a sudden, Synergistic GT3 by BMS Esports have got a nice, healthy margin to the car that was in third place, and after the pit stops, should probably remain in third place.
Certainly so. Now that we've seen, this has given us a good standing point, isn't it? Because we now know, realistically, or at least we have a much better understanding of what drivers are able to do, especially for this round of drivers. Obviously, now we've got a couple of driver changes. Yes, this does change everything a little bit. And we are into a bit more of the unknown. However, at least we have an idea for first round of drivers and what they are able to do, especially when it comes to the pace. Oh, this is a bit of a move. Sebastian Peterson goes up the inside of Christoph Hermans for Duct Taper Racing. And again, but look at that. Chris Hermans is making a move straight back. They're going to go side by side down into the latter stages of the lap. Who is the last of the late breakers? It is going to be Sebastian Peterson. Understandable, to be honest. I mean, Sebastian Peterson is just an hour in the car. So Christoph Hermans hasn't actually driven the car this race so far. So, you know, you've always got to be that sort of, you know, allow for a bit of movement and allow for a bit of, you know, just sort of settling into it. You can't expect it to, you know, can't be expected to just jump out and within the first lap to be on the maximum pace. It will take 5 or 6 laps to come up. Meanwhile, this is a battle for P2, and Kalbrecht is being pressured quite heavily by Jens Goosens. Again, could we be seeing this possibly as it's a driver change? Could we be seeing this as it might take a little bit of time for Stefan Kalbrecht to actually, again, to get back into the rhythm of the track conditions in the car?
Look who's in behind. It's Olivier Bilting. He's not coming to the pits yet, but he's going through to try and lap, and he's going to upset the rhythm now of the car in behind his teammate. That helps him out massively, allows some breathing space. Olivier Bilting wants to go on through regardless, even though he's technically fighting for position instead of fighting to put a lap on these competitors. He's still going for it. You expect to see him into the pits this time by. Gets to the right-hand side and does do exactly that. But something must have happened, I think, to Stefan Kalbrecht, because he did have a 3-second gap. All of a sudden, that has been erased to naught. And it's now gone the other way around as down the inside goes Jens Goosens. Great move by the Lamborghini. Something's going on with Stefan Kalbrecht. He's not been able to get his car up and running in the way he's liked. Unfortunately, he's dropped back Jens Goosens, though. Very, very quick driver. Seems to be adapting nicely to the car. And is up already into P2. So a great start to the stint for Zandvoort Esports 1. But Olivier Bilting finally makes his way into the pit lane. What's he going to do? He stays in the car, doesn't switch out for any other driver. Is that a sign that he's not going to take tyres? We'll have a look if we can, Dan, actually, because that gap has increased even further by Jens Goosens, who's on definite charge. We'll have a look at Olivier Bilting. Is the car up on the jacks or not? Is he taking tyres or fuel? Well, we don't know now because he's on pit exit.
Well, looking at the pit stop timer, I don't think so, because the pit stop timer was 42 seconds. So as it was 42 seconds, my guess would be that no tyre stop happened, because that's a 24-second gain which would not... You can actually see, yeah, as well. So look at that. So Peter Lemkins, 42 seconds. Kim Bayet, 42 seconds. The rest of the drivers are over a minute. So, yeah, that would indicate that Boltnick, Lemkins and Bayet have not taken tyres. And that would also make sense because they are moving forward and they have not actually swapped drivers. So... Boltnick has the pace at the moment. He obviously has the confidence that the car will continue that pace. It's an interesting tactic. It's a tactic that I would personally look forward, that would be looking to do. It was impressive the fact that Boltnick was able to go so much longer than everyone else as well. So not only is able to conserve tyres, but also able to conserve the fuel as well enough that you can go, what, I think it was 2 laps extra? No, it was, so pit lap for everyone else was, or for Peter Lemkins, Bayet, Damians, Colbrett, Yussens, was laps number 37 or 38. And then Boltnick's was lap number 40.
Yeah, I think on a definite charge here. Got a 30-second gap, 36 seconds to Jens Goossens, but Jens is definitely very, very quick at this present moment in time. Extending his gap now to Stefan Colbrett by considerable margin, 3 seconds to the good now. I'm not sure if that's just Stefan Colbrett not adapting to the car as nicely, as lap times aren't as fast. This could also just be purely down to Jens Goossens being very, very quick this stage of the race. First in, cool tyres, got them up into the operating window nice and quickly. And I'm not going to say he's going to be able to close up 30 seconds to Olivier Boltink. Definitely is going to be very quick. And here's a move. This is Jesse Hendricks, much like his teammate, sending a move down the inside into turn 9. That DynamiXX pink car loves that sort of move, and everything seems to be the thing all the drivers are capable of doing. Is Jesse Hendricks makes up another position on his charge back up through the field. Let's see actually what the delta is. Still lost a little bit of time, obviously, following that incident. The Decimo B car up in P6, whereas Jesse is staying in P11. Of course, though, like we say, loads of time to go in the race. Loads of overtakes for that DynamiXX pink car to be able to make up. And his reperf move we saw earlier on, Jens Goossens, this is how he did it. Sent it into the first corner. And Stefan Colbrett didn't really have any form of answer.
No, he didn't, did he? I mean, to be fair, again, I don't think it was defended that hard. The move was going to happen. Colbrett decided that, yeah, okay, we'll let this move happen, let it go, and then come back at a later time. I think to be fair. So, you know, realistically, it was always going to be a move. And, you know, arguably, Colbrett did the right thing. You know, Goossens has the pace. We can see, I mean, look at the gap. The gap's already 5.3 seconds now. So, I think realistically that, yeah, you saw Colbrett recognised it, let it go through. Goossens is also able to push forward, which is also very, very good. So, I think that was a good piece of driving from both drivers there, both in the overtake and also the tactics that the Sim District GT3 number 14 played there also. As we see up and down, we've got everything started to open up a little bit here. Again, the gaps are starting to come down. Brand Van Jutven and Peterson. That's one of the closer battles. You've also Christoph Hermans, and then that is, I believe, Jesse Hendricks. You know, 3 cars here within, you know, there's about a second. There's a couple of battles here at the moment. As you were saying, this is now where we're going to be seeing this probably for the next 4 hours. And this is really going to happen for the next 4 hours. And up until the final hour comes through. And then once the final hour comes through, then we are now going to be saying, we're going to say, right, brilliant. I'm now in a position where I can start pushing forward. And we're going to see the battles now come back onto the circuit rather than strategy. But probably for the next 3 or 4 hours, it is going to be strategy-based. How far can you push the car? How far can you get the tyres? How far can you extend the fuel stop and the fuel stint? All these questions here are now going to be in this main bulk of the race.
Yeah, it's going to be all about just being nice and steady, nice and stable, not wanting to upset the rhythm at all, and, well, hopefully coming through for a good result at the end of it. Speaking of good result, that'd be a good thing. Margins up at the front and keep on growing and growing. It's brilliant stuff. This is going to be exciting to see what happens. Of course, battling in the mid pack as well that we're seeing here. between Christoph Hermans and, well, Hendricks just further ahead in the DynamiXX race speed. We already saw that move being made. Is there any way for him to come through as well? Having a look, actually, at, I think, Bram van Uitven, who's in a little bit of a scrap. Getting close between himself and Pedersen.
Yeah, the gap is, what's it, 1.1 to sort of 0.9, depending on whereabouts in the circuits they are. So, you know, that gap is, at the moment, it's staying roughly the same. So last laps, for example, you had a 138.15 for Van Uitven, and you had a 138.33 for Sebastian Pedersen. So very, very close. What are the lap times going to be this time out? We are going to see interesting. So we're going to see a 137.96 from Van Uitven, and then a 137.69 for Pedersen. And you can see the gap has actually come down now to about 6.5 tenths of a second. So battles are really starting to, again, continue to ebb and flow. But I wonder if Pedersen if he can maintain this pace up, then he'll be able to pull up to the back of Van Uitven, overtake, and then pull away in not too many laps at all. Depends if this pace can be maintained, though. I think we see Van Uitven, is he a bit faster in the mid-complex, in the mid sort of section, the mid part of this lap? He might be. We'll have to see at this lap as well. We're going to keep on the battle. Keep an eye out for the left-hand side of your timing tower and see what that gap goes to. At the moment, I said 6.666. And certainly not the greatest numbers for some people, but we've got that gap 6.6. Is it going to go up or down in the next Delta sector? I think it might go up a little bit here. So that does probably indicate actually that Pedersen and Van Uitven are very, very even as it stands at the moment, and it simply is just going to be who can get the most out of the car at this stage of the race.
Yeah, I think that is going to be what it comes down to, is who can extract the most performance, who can really as well look after the tyres the best. We've seen some drivers opt to take tyres, others not, and in fact we can have a look to find out what the track temperature is doing. The day is getting further and further on. The race is set to end just a little bit before the sun fully goes down. I think it's still, to be fair, Dan, actually quite hot out there, so we'll try and find out the track temperature for you. It's 38 degrees, I think, 38, so it's gone down by 1. Getting there, slowly but surely. This is the stage of the race.
Baltic winter, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about the stage where it'll start to get a little bit cooler now that first degree has gone down. The others will follow in. But the other thing as well is that there's no wind. There's hardly any wind whatsoever, which is probably partly a reason as well why the track is not cooling whatsoever. That hot air that was there earlier is just sort of staying there. It's sitting there. It's muggy. It's hot. It's awful. If you're there by the trackside and you're by the coast where it's already warm and sweaty and horrid. But to be fair, means that the drivers have got that extra little bit of things to worry about maybe as well. Their plans have gone out the window because they were expecting a cooler track.
I was actually interested to do you know what? I didn't actually realise until about last year. This is how much I really don't pay attention to a lot of these things now. I really didn't know that Zandvoort was actually that close to the coast. And we're talking like literally, what, a mile? No, not even that. It's literally next to it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's basically right next to, just right next to the ocean, next to the sea. It's basically in amongst all the sand dunes you can see there, and means that there aren't really many other circuits like it. Of course, Netherlands, you're never too far for a body of water, being that most of the country was underwater at some stage. Obviously on reclaimed land, but Zandvoort built in the sand dunes along the coast means that you get plenty of elevation as well to come through, because rising and falling, there aren't many circuits much like it as Ryan Perkins actually sets fastest lap of the race, at least in the Porsche Cup class, and something like that. He's actually marginally faster than, I don't want to say it, the car that's in third place that isn't having a great time, Stefan Kalbrecht. So unfortunately, Stefan is not having a good time. And looking at the gap coming down, Peter Lemkins could fancy a podium.
I'm just having a look at this as well, actually, and you're right. Last lap for Cabret was a 139.34. Last lap time for Lemkins was 138.65. So that gap is coming down pretty aggressively, to be perfectly honest. It depends as well if the battle can, obviously whether that pace will continue or not, is obviously it remains to be seen. But if it does, then yeah, it's certainly not going to be too long before I might even see we can get the sector times up as well in a few moments and actually see what we're able to, and see if we can actually see a sector by sector if Lemkins is catching up. Although, meanwhile, we possibly have a battle here. What has happened? Van Jutven has had has he got off or something? I'm not 100% sure what has happened there. But Van Jutven loses a position to Peterson. Peterson makes the move up the inside. Let's see if we can get a replay of why Van Jutven looked to be just I don't know, just looked to be quite slow going into turn. I'm not 100% sure why that was. Let's have a quick look if we can see. Didn't look like anything really sort of happened. It's just massive overspeed there from Peterson. It may have actually happened possibly later, like coming out of the last corner. Maybe he just had to have a small little bit of a lift, perhaps. That's the only thing I can really think of.
Yeah, I think there was just a little bit of a lift coming through, but yeah, it was very, very intriguing to watch, at the very least. Sebastian Pedersen, try racing, number 4. The driver gets out of the corner, a little bit of a slide, but keeps it going. Then there's you can see the different lines being taken, actually. I was going to say different lines. That was a mistake from Van Jutven in behind, running a little bit too wide, losing ground. All of a sudden, gaps coming down now as there's other fights occurring. Mckay, Peter Lemkins starting to squabble. Peter Lemkins can see that he's closing in on 3rd place, but unfortunately, Mckay is closing in on 4th a little bit sooner. Ferris Simsport looks to the inside of the Audi. Can't find a way through, but again, he's thinking that maybe all the pit stops have happened, the racing is done, they're going to sit into a rhythm. No, they're not. There's plenty of action still ongoing. This is now between, well, the battle for 4th place that we saw. It was pretty much all Porsches racing for, but now, funny how things change, isn't it? It's the cars that are essentially identical underneath all of the bodywork and aero devices, the Audi and the Lamborghini. But which is going to come out on top, the original or the second one? The I'm not going to say the imitation because it is its own car in its own right, but definitely the car that's heavily based on the former.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, the Lamborghini is a newer platform, I believe. It's certainly one of the newer cars that comes in. Is this going to be the... I thought there was going to be a move then, but no, that was not the case. Yeah, the Lamborghini is the newer platform. It just has a bit of... I imagine what would be the main difference here is I've not driven the Audi all that much, to be fair. The main car I've driven is the Lamborghini, but just imagine it's just the bodywork will actually make a bit of a difference in terms of the weight because the bodywork is in different places. There may be some additional weight that has been pushed around. I mean, either way, it seems to be suiting the Lamborghini more so at the moment because we are now seeing Kim Bayet goes through up the inside. Are we going to see that? Yes, we are indeed. Possibly a little bit wider. No, so Peter Lemkins has to concede the position to the Flemish Simsport number 86 Lamborghini and recompose and then try and go again. Although the pace that Bayet has got as it stands at the moment, I'm not so sure that Lemkins is going to be able to catch up because the gap is already between the two half a second.
Wow. Definitely coming down. Definitely a exciting little fight we're seeing now. Nick Folia in behind Hans Damiens. This may be time spell speed. Closing, speeding on through. He's getting now through turn 8, 9. Then on the run into 10. You don't really have time to think here at Zandvoort. The corners do come pretty thick and fast. Different lines being taken as well. That was a much, much later apex being taken by Damiens. Just up in front. And then, of course, into the chicane where we've seen that DynamiXX speed car. Remember, Nick Polliot's teammate was very, very strong, and again, seems to be quite good there. A little bit of a correction on the power on the exit. Of course, the weight distribution means the car is a little bit prone to some rear-end twitchiness, but keeps it strong, keeps it firm. All about the run now out of the second last corner. Shifting up the gears a little bit earlier, actually, to keep the revs down. Allows him to keep his foot flat to the floor. Makes the car nice and stable as well. Now into the first corner, too far back to realistically make a move. You can hear him lift off and then trail brake into the corner. Saving fuel now, Nick Polliot. He's focusing on getting to the 2 hour mark on this stint, because if he pits any earlier, that does start to ring the alarm bells a bit in terms of if they need to make a splash and dash before the end of the race or not.
It does indeed. That's a good point, actually. One thing I did notice as well is a couple of drivers were pitting.
Hello.
I don't know what's happened. Ed, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there.
Oh, okay. Either way, we're back. It's all good. Yeah, I was just saying that some drivers, it looked like they weren't pitting on the hour. Now, that's a very, very crucial thing, because what that means is it doesn't make too much of a difference again now, but what it does mean is that if drivers can't extend to over the hour, it means they will have to do an additional pit stop come the end of the race, simply because they will not have enough fuel to do the full 6 hours. If anything, what you're going to need to do, you're going to need to do 6 hours and plus an additional lap. Because, realistically, by the time it hits 6 hours, you're going to have to do another lap anyway. It's going to be you'd be very, very lucky if the time it hits 6 minutes and then that's it. So, realistically, you've got to do for 6 minutes and 6 hours, 1 minute and 38-ish seconds, roughly around that sort of time. So, drivers really need to consider how they're going to extend that fuel if they haven't been doing so already. And if they can't, or if they don't pit past the hour this time around, that is certainly going to be a concern leading into the latter half of the race.
Yeah, it is all about, obviously, focusing on that latter stage. It's all about, of course, in the here and now, trying to make up the positions when you can, but the points are gained, races are won at the end of 6 hours, not any time before that. That's where you need to put yourself coming towards the end of the race. You can just see the difference in pace between certain drivers. Certain times they put in their quick drivers, sometimes they put their more stable, more consistent, maybe slightly slower drivers in for the second stint. It's all about what the teams think is their best strategy. Obviously, ultimately you want to have everyone as quick as possibly can, but sometimes, depending on the track, some drivers adapt to other circuits better than others. Zandvoort is a track that I'm actually not that great at, depending on the car. Sometimes in the F3 I was actually not too bad in the Sim Racers World F3 series. I know there's some members in chat that have taken part and continue to take part in that series that I was able to race with and have a good time with, but then in GT3s it's so much harder to try and navigate, and we've just seen that come through for Peter Lemkins, finding it difficult to navigate the second to last corner. Touch of the gravel, regains control of the car, but instead of regaining the positions, instead loses out on 2 occasions. Hans and Nick going through into 5th and 6th, and now it's all about Lemkins really wanting to stay in behind, get in the slipstream and make sure he doesn't lose out too much time, and maybe even save a bit of fuel if the cars ahead start to squabble now that they've gotten through the Audi.
100%. Save the fuel. Save the fuel. It's not worth trying to battle. It's not worth trying to push the car, actually. If you can't save fuel, then actually, if you can't sit behind them and they are starting to pull away, again, that's fine. Just run your own race. Again, it's not a sprint race. An hour and 25 minutes have gone. Most sprint races will be over by now. I mean, arguably, you could say a sprint race still maybe is like a 2-hour sprint race. That's almost a sprint race now in today's modern standards. But, a third of the race hasn't even gone yet. It's not worth trying to push the car really aggressively and try and get another position or try and catch up. It doesn't work. So you've just got to make sure that you are nice, controlled, consistent, and you don't push the car too much. You simply run your race. As it stands, Hans Damien, I wonder if we're going to see this start to come out, because this is the battle as it stands at the moment. So David's just got around about sort of 0.4 of a second on Nick Pouliot as it stands, or Pouliot, sorry, for the Dynamics Bell Speed car. And well, we're going to see this come down actually now. I thought we were going to see it come down. If anything, no, we're not. Interestingly enough, Damien's actually pulled out along the straight there, which I didn't think was a possibility. Whether Damien's is actually running quite a considerably low rear wing compared to Pouliot in the number 1 car. I mean, there's certainly nothing to say that that wouldn't be a possibility. I was just wondering what else that could have been. It didn't look like Pouliot had a particularly poor run out of the last corner. I don't know what that could have been.
I think he could have as well been down to just saving maybe a bit of fuel, because of course iRacing bases fuel usage on throttle position, so maybe Calhoun Nick was just at maybe half throttle, maybe 3/4 throttle, and of course was losing out on account of that as well. There's a lot of things you can do with the setup, even if the cars are identical, the setups probably aren't. So drivers ought to make their time in different areas of the track. And of course, that different setup means that different lines might favour drivers as well. We can see Hans Damien's and Nick Pouliot driving the car differently, even if it is the same bit of kit. Of course, Nick is looking pretty handy, pretty quick. Not quite far away. Passes. Again, I'm having a look through here, and are we going to see a change position, perhaps, between Stefan Kalbrek and Kim Bahayet? That gap is coming down. Kim Bahayet, Flemish Simsport, I think, has got the move into third place.
Certainly so. Let's just get a replay of that for you. Actually, we're going to see. I wonder. We'll just stay on this for a few moments and see if Kalbrek can try and retake the position. I wonder if that is going to be the case. Not 100% sure at the moment. So Hans Damien is only 1.8 seconds behind. There is a car in between. Can't quite see who that is. Might be Martin DeWitt for WPR Racing, I believe. That looks to be a familiar car. Gap has already opened. Look at that. 0.7 of a second now. So Kalbrek is dropping just that little bit more time, unfortunately. So no positions to be gained as it stands at the moment. Let's have a quick look at that overtake here. We're going down into toe. Wow, that was a late... I need to look at that on board. I want to see how close that was. I can imagine that was certainly a new race suit as well needed there. So up the inside. Again, committed on the brakes. Really, really good stuff. We may have a possible move coming in here. So Peter Lemkins may be losing another position to Martin Deakins. Or Martin Deckens. Is it going to be? No. Peter Lemkins holds his own at the moment. But the Dynamics Racing Simulator car is really, really... is hassling the back of that RP Motorsport. That Audi, isn't he? Wow. Looking at the car here, just looking at the pace that Deckens has as it stands at the moment, it just seems to be a matter of time, I think, really.
Yeah, I think you're right, to be fair. It's just down to maybe when, not if, that's going to happen. Deckens down the inside here. Lemkins seemingly going to lose out here onto the brakes. They are going to go side by side. Is it late enough on the brakes? No, it isn't from the Audi. Round the outside, can't hold it. Martin Deckens makes the move. Down the inside, up into 7th place now. All of a sudden, you can start to focus on getting up to Nick Pouliot. Just up the road, lap times relatively similar between the two of them. I've been looking at the past 5 when they've been trading times left, right and centre. So then again, I think for Martin Deckens it's going to be about maybe not making massive gains each lap, but slowly chipping away at the advantage of the cars in front, going on the lap times, focusing on the races. The track temperature cools off now. You can focus on the strategy a little bit more, because I don't think drivers were expecting the track to be as hot as it is now.
No, I don't think so. And it's really, it is taking its toll, isn't it? It is starting to, although I think drivers are used to it, I think, at this point. But yeah, it might be adjusting with the strategy a little bit. I can't imagine it's adjusting to the strategy all that much, though, to be fair. Like I said, maybe a little bit in some of the, especially the higher speed corners, where you simply just haven't got the grip from the tyres. You haven't got the lateral grip. The tyre just isn't giving you enough as it stands. I mean, having a look at the weather, you know, it's come down. I couldn't quite see that. Is that 36 degrees? I believe so. So it has started to drop a little bit. It is getting on to about 3:45 in the afternoon. So we're going now, it's, you know, starting to come down into the early evening here at Zandvoort in sim time. And I wonder, is that going to... Well, that is going to have an effect. I just don't really know how much of an effect it's going to have. The track has dropped, so we're going to see the times get gradually faster. And looking at predictions on that, maybe we may see it drop down to about 32 degrees, maybe 31 if we're lucky, which obviously, like I said, is just going to let everyone's going to be able to push just that little bit harder than they are initially, and they are now. But again, you know, it's all relative, isn't it? Because they're not really going to be able to properly push until it comes to that last hour of the stint. Martin de Wit has gone off. We just see maybe you caught the tail end of that as well. But we've just seen as well that Stefan Calbrecht that's gone off, and that's left the door open for Pouillet, and up the inside does the Dynamic Racing Simulator's number 6 go, and that is a position there. So that moves Nick Pouillet up into P5 car number 1. So Martin Deckens certainly. Sorry, that is. Oh, what has happened here? Has Damon's had a spin?
Whoa.
What on earth happened there? I reckon I'd have put my money on this. Bit too much curb, I reckon, on the entry.
I reckon, yeah, probably the same. Just maybe running a bit too much through that right hander, running wide onto the gravel perhaps, and having a bit of a mistake. Let's have a look here.
No.
Oh no.
Car
just went. It was similar though, because of course, when the car goes in the Porsche, it's so difficult to try and regain it. Does well to have a half spin, then bumps the wall just a touch. Let's have a look on board. Yeah, the rear goes. He tries to save it. He can't do it.
Keeps out of the wall,
Keeps it just out of the wall, but then trying to recover the car. He has a little bit of a tap. Not a big one, so I think he's safe. Track temperature now down to 36 degrees. So track getting cooler. Car's getting faster. Maybe the strategy is starting to open up just a little bit more now, a bit more freedom for drivers to maybe risk a few things. They know the track's going to be getting cooler even for the next stint, so even if they think it's borderline now, of course with the next stint being a little bit cooler on the track temperature, easier on the tyres, means that it might be time to start thinking about double stints. Or do you just take tyres now and then double stint towards the end of the race? Because realistically, if you were to double from now, you would still have to make 2 pit stops. If you were to, I don't know. Actually, no, if you were to double from now, I'm trying to work it out. Maths, brain, figure it out. Come on, Ed. Come on, Ed. If you were to do a single and then double to the end, you'd only need 2 more pit stops. But if you were to do a double until the end, you'd also still need to do 2 more pit stops. It's just when you decide to do that one stint stop, I think.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean,
yes, I figured it out.
I mean, what you could do as well, again, you can safely assume the track will get cooler, or if anything, the track's going to get grippier as well, isn't it? To be fair, it may already be at its sort of maximum grip levels, to be honest. But you may see, and I'm just trying to work this out in my head as well, as like a possible alternate strategy as we have a little bit of time. Is what may happen is you may start to see possibly a little bit of them. Actually, no. I'm almost possibly going to contradict myself at this point as well. I wonder if we're going to get some drivers to try and do a triple stint on tyres, and then after the second hour and going into the third hour, then there'll be the driver change, and then when that driver change kicks off, then they'll be able to go into the into that next round of driver stops, and then you'll be able to push through. It's tricky, but if you can survive the triples in this stint, or in this first half of the race, when the track gets cooler, it will be essentially, and in theory, easier to do the triple in the next half of the race. That could be absolute rubbish, but that's what I would be thinking from my side, is that's possible. As long as it's in the rules, as long as the rules allow you to do that, I'd be looking at doing that if I could. Yes, you may lose sort of 15 seconds or so out on track, but you're going to save 25 seconds by not having to change your tyres. So there's a benefit in it for around about 10 seconds.
And I think you could be right on that. I think if my teammates if we'd already made a stop, I would try and double this stint and then maybe triple the next one. But, oh my word, there's a lot of stuff going on here. There's so much happening here. We've got to pause for a minute. All of a sudden, there's a race going on. Who'd have thought it, eh, Dan? There's a race going on somehow. And Olivia Bolsink's going to get involved in this, trying to lap the competition. Not necessarily, there you can see him flashing his lights. He's a little bit flustered, a little bit frustrated. Getting held up, doesn't want to get caught up in an incident as well. Just letting the drivers know where he is so they don't come across him and get involved with contact. Hans Damians, look at the run. He's up for a later effort down into now turn 8 on the brakes. We don't see moves into here very often. He's going for it, his hands, and he's got it done. Great move by the number 10. Decimo B coming back after a little moment we saw earlier, going through the corner that, well, we are just about to come to now. The quick right left chicane. Nice and cambered. Does usually help the car to stay stable. Stefan Calvert losing out yet another position as well. All of a sudden he's losing places. Hands over his, the massive send there. Somehow they all keep it nice and clean. Oh my word, Dan, there's so much going on all of a sudden.
I know, it's all just kicked off, isn't it? Coming down into the latter half of the second stint for drivers, it's really starting to kick off. Sebastian Peterson has had an incident. We're going to see if we can get a replay of that. And the gap has actually been, the gap's gone down. It's about now 4 seconds behind Calbrecht. The battle once again still going forward. It's not over yet between Peter Lemkens and Jesse Hendricks now. And who is it going to be last in the late breakers? We know the Porsche are good on the brakes. There is that braking from the Porsche. Is there going to be? No, there isn't. Peter Lemkens cannot pull that car back around, unfortunately. So, yeah, very, very good move indeed. Cannot complain of that at all from Jesse Hendricks. Really just, I mean, that was a pretty assertive and dominant move there, which was absolutely fantastic to see. And again, Porsche versus Audi. Porsche coming out on top. Currently, it seems to be the Porsche's got some good pace at the moment. Although the top 3 currently are Lamborghinis. And it's Lamborghinis followed by then 5 Porsches. And then you've got 1 Audi, 1 BMW, and then another couple of Porsches there. So Porsche's definitely, definitely taken over this race, shall we say. I'm just having another quick look up and down. Get better Nick Pouliot. Kimbert's got a little bit wide. That would have cost a bit of time. Not on the entry too much, but on the exit, you can see there as well. On the left-hand side of the timing tower, that's definitely cost time. About 1/10 of a second. I wonder if this is going to be a move. Let's run on board with Nick Pouliot if we can. Here we go. Is there actually going to be a lift here? I'm sure I heard a lift. I'm sure I heard a teeny, tiny bit of a lift there.
Just a touch of a lift, but I think it's it's definitely going to be interesting to see what the drivers do. Look at this though, a little bit of contact. Sebastian Pedersen spun around after contact with Stefan Kalbrecht coming through turn 10. Thankfully, there was no other contact after the fact. Sebastian Pedersen won't be happy though.
No, certainly not. We've got a... This is Sebastian Kalbrecht past Peter Lemkens. What has happened? Oh, Peter Lemkens, that's he's coming to the pits, that's what. So Peter Lemkens, again, look at that. I mean, significantly early out of the pit stop. So this strategy... I mean, certainly off strategy now is Lemkens. We can certainly see that. I wonder if we're going to see a tyre change. We'll keep you posted. No tyre change for... Actually, am I wrong? Yes. Gus Franken has now come into and has jumped into that RP Motorsport by BT Audi, the number 2. So there we are. I believe we have indeed seen some We haven't seen the tyre change there. As we got Peterson up the inside of Cal right now. We just caught the tail end of that, so we're going to try and find you a replay of that in a few moments' time. Yeah, it's all really starting to kick off now. An hour and 40 minutes have gone. We have another... I can't do maths. 4 hours and 20 minutes to go. There we go. We got there in the end, didn't we? Yeah, so to be honest, I thought we were going to have it was going to be a bit more relaxed now for this mid par for the next sort of like 3.5 hours, but certainly not. So everyone has proved me wrong on this broad, which is fantastic because not only do we enjoy seeing some really, really good strategies here, but we also really enjoy seeing some good battling as well. There is Jesse Hendricks from the DynamiXX pink car making the way back up. And that is a position over Bram van Jutven. Done and dusted. I think at the moment, that's pretty much everything in terms of battles at the moment. I don't really think there's any more that we can really need to look at this point because everything's started to open up again.
Yeah, it is sort of opening up a little bit, but then all of a sudden it'll explode in action once more. Jesse Hendricks, Van Jutven, DynamiXX Racing Pink, DynamiXX Red, DynamiXX Simulators. They've all been having battles with one another. They've not necessarily been playing by any sorts of team orders. They are really going for it, which is something you love to see. It's early days in the championship. Why should they be sort of working together, playing the team game? They're out to take the victories, take the podiums for themselves. You know what? They could be seeing exactly that. Just watching Kimber Hayet, Nick Pouya, look at how close they are as well, up for third place. Gap coming down now. Are we going to see potential change? Is Pouya going to get ahead into the podium places?
You might give it a go, certainly.
10th faster that last lap.
No.
Car in fourth place.
Going to be going to that in a few minutes now, and there we go. Oh, I mean, if anything, again, is it worth the move? I don't think it is. I don't think it's worth Pouya making the move. I almost think it's worth just sitting behind and just jumping, trying to get the jump in the pit lane. That's what I would try and do. If you pit in on the same lap, or not even pit on the same lap, but if you get the if you know you're faster, if you can sit behind, then maybe try and get the overcut, the undercut even. Then, no, actually no, it would be an overcut. If you're pitting later, it's an overcut, isn't it? Is that it? If anyone could clarify with that in the comments for me as well, please, that would be great. Because I think the undercut is when you pit earlier, the overcut is when you try and pit later than the car you're racing with, I think. I'm going with that. I'm holding firm on that. I'm holding firm on that theory. Whether that's right or wrong, we will see. Yeah, if someone could clarify that for me in the comments, that'd be marvellous. Yeah, at the moment, I don't think it's worth making the move personally. You'd lose more time than you gain. Because bear in mind, you've got Martin Deckens 2.9 seconds ahead. Martin is putting in some good lap times here. At 37.2 was his last lap. Compared to a 37.8 for Nick and a 37.9 for Kim. So, is it worth losing any additional time? I don't think it is at the moment.
No, not yet, but there might be a time where you have to really just go for it, maybe cut your losses, maybe worry about potentially losing time, but just going for broke, isn't it? You need to try and put yourself in the best track position as Nick probably up very late on the brakes, always going into the back this time of Kimber Hayet. The both of them are fairly quick in terms of lap times. Definitely no slouches, definitely in track with the cars around them. Maybe not with the leader, who is, well, it's Olivier Bilting. He's already got a 45-second gap compared to everyone else. It's fortunately not a race for first. It's going to be already a second, but we're seeing a lot of mentioning in the YouTube chat that it's overcutting because you pit later, you gain the place, but then if you undercut, you pit sooner and you can gain the place. It's all very tricky, but rather good to see you in the chat. And also, actually, I've just noticed Porsche Sport in the chat as well, asking, how's the 992 battle? Well, currently the number 9 car is in the lead, but unfortunately in last place it's number 9 Ryan Parkins. Brilliant race, but come on Ryan, gotta get out of last place.
It's a bit harsh, isn't it?
Ryan's a tough lad. He knows he's fine. Ryan's a tough lad. Shout out to the pair of them. They've got some good pace behind them. I can't wait to see if Peter Mckay can have this. Will be able to stay in the lead when he takes the car.
Like I said earlier on, it's a good opportunity for testing as well, isn't it? Is that a move? Is Nick Puller? Yes, he is. He has made the move on Kim Bayet, and there we go. I wonder if they'll now come in, or obviously try and see if we can pull away. If the position then comes back, obviously then we might see maybe then Nick Puller say, okay, brilliant, tried to make the move, it hasn't worked, I'll then sit back. Interesting stuff. Fair play, it is a very, very good move. Interesting enough, the Kim Bayet didn't defend that move too much. Again, just sort of accepted the move was happening and then going to come back as well. You see this a lot of the time as well, especially in the likes of Formula 1, etc., is it's showing that they're just running their own race as it stands at the moment, aren't they? And if a position happens and a move is made, it's not the end of the world. You've got plenty of other opportunities to try and get that move back. Robin van Gogh has made, has had an error. Something has happened. Is it going through into turn 3? Oh, I can see this happening already. Oh, no. Oh, that's a hefty hit.
Ouch.
That's a hefty hit.
That's the only thing you can say to that is ouch. That was very, very strong, but thankfully, I think that was into one of the softer barriers on the circuit.
Luckily, it was. You are very, very true. Actually, it's you're very. That's a very, very good point. It was. I mean, arguably, there's going to be damage either way, isn't there? To be honest, there is 100% going to be damage. It's just how much damage, and hopefully, there is not too much. But we'll have to see. We obviously did see Robin van Gogh in the pit lane. Is there too much? No, 58 seconds. So no, nothing really of note there in terms of damage wise. Probably maybe used a fast repair. Might not have done. Don't really know.
Yeah, I think that's the case. Sometimes you can use fast repairs. Sometimes it's not. It's gonna be very tricky. You just let the car go through. Ryan Parkins. It's a very, very nice sounding car, isn't it? Maybe not as loud as the GT3 Porsches, but 992 still is a lovely, lovely car. Not a fan though of the rear end. Sadly, I don't really like that weird bar brake plate sort of thing it's got going.
Oh, do you know? Oh, I really like that.
But then again, my taste in cars is apparently,
Falling.
Mental. Yeah, I'm one of the people that likes the front of the BMW GT3 car.
Oh, but, God, no, get it in the bin.
See, this is where I probably have the weirdest taste in cars ever. I like it. I think it's got character.
Character?
Yeah, it looks like it's got like little bunny teeth.
No, yeah, but I don't want a car that looks like Bugs Bunny.
I like it. It's cute.
Oh, God.
I think you can normalise calling cars cute.
No,
and then you can call cars angry things. You got that thing. That looks aggressive. That's cool. I like that.
No, but yeah, a Nissan Figaro, that's a cute car. That's, to be fair, I have to admit, I will agree with you. Oh, that's a bit of a said. Sorry, there's racing going on. Martin Dinkins tries to go up the inside of Kim Bayet. So Kim Bayet's lost 2 positions in 2 laps. Interesting stuff. I wonder if, I don't know. Maybe tyres have started going off. Interesting. We'll have to see. We'll have to keep an eye on this pace. I've actually got another position that might happen. This is between Robin van Gogh and Vlaming for the MC Challenge by DB. Is that going to be round the outside? Tries Robin van Gogh, but no move there yet. Yeah, I will agree with you that the standard 4 Series, I'm not 100% sure of. In terms of like the standard road car. However, the race car and the M competition car, so the new M4, the new M3, that new grille, it looks better because I think the grille works with it as well. Certainly with this, with the BMW, with the car as it is, with the nice, really aggressive flared arches and the front bumper and everything, it looks really, really good. It's really aggressive, I have to admit. And what I say, cute, interesting. Whoa, that was a bit of a tup. Is it going to be Bosby Van Gogh tries to get up the inside? Is it going to be a move? I think it is. Oh, there's a bit of contact between both drivers. Has that put anyone? No, everyone still manages to continue. Oh, that was a bit close, wasn't it? Everyone managed to get through. I don't think any drivers suffered sort of major damage. I don't think any damage at all, to be perfectly honest. But Wow, that was close.
That was very, very close. Yeah, thankfully they got through. And now you can have a look at the BMW. Look at it. I think it looks quite good at the front. I think it's a very nice, and especially because it's got a good. I think it's as well down to when it was first brought out, the sort of the standard paint job that came with it kind of drew a lot of attention to it. But now I think it looks all right. It blends in nicely with the paint job.
Like you said, it's grown on me a bit.
A bit.
It has. It's. I dislike it less. There we go. I think that's the best way to put it. No, in all seriousness, though, like in the right colour, and I mean these liveries look fantastic. Like, I really enjoy this livery. You know, the black, the lime green, the grey as well. It works with this car, I have to admit. And to be fair as well, the Sim-District TCR, unfortunately, a car that isn't actually running as it stands at the moment. So, you know, the Sim-District GT3 BMS Esport car, the sole GT3 BMW here, yeah, livery looks absolutely fantastic. And that goes for all the liveries. I'm really liking. I'm going through all the liveries, looking at them. I like a good livery. I do like a good livery. And it does work with this car, I will admit. Everything blends in nicely. No, the attention isn't drawn to the front bumper. Interesting enough, though, I'd like to see what's everyone's thoughts about the BMW. Again, I
like the rear end.
Rear end looks good. Rear end looks good. I've seen here. Oh, okay. This is interesting. This is Jitsi Medema. Apologies for name pronunciation. We have the Porsche rear end. Looks like RoboCop. That's interesting.
That's what I was thinking. I was wondering what it was. I thought it was like some weird, like cyberpunk, weird future, like sort of like a 70s view of the future on the rear end of that Porsche. But yeah, I see what you mean now. It is like a weird RoboCop looking thing. Still don't like it, but I can see why some people do.
I would just see in the comments as well. And Hendrik de Groot just went, how many kilograms of pedals would the BMW collect when it goes into the gravel jet? I mean, that's a fair point, actually, as well. And then it would eat the gravel jet. It would just scoop it all up. I mean, it's actually a fair point.
I mean, you're at Zandvoort. There won't be any beach left if one of these cars exits the circuit.
It just hoovers it all up.
Yeah, it might suck up the ocean for a good measure as well. This is how they reclaim land, you know, in the Netherlands. This is how they do it. They just get a BMW out, just suck it all up.
Like, you know, at the end of the day, if we all had the same taste in cars, the world would be a very boring place, wouldn't it? But actually, yeah, everyone in the comments, let me know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on what you think of the new BMW. I'm intrigued to see whether, again, do more people side with Ed on this fact? Do more people side with myself on this fact? No, to be fair, no, genuinely, it's actually an interesting thing because a lot of people, it's one of the new Marmite. I'm trying to think of the last like Marmite car. What was the last proper Marmite car that ever came? Was it like? Oh, I don't know.
I think there was a lot of stuff when it came out. Again, about the BMW, the Z4, the sort of the newer Z4, and also the new Supra, the new Toyota Supra.
Oh, that's
there's a lot of people that were a little bit Marmitey about that. I still don't know how I feel about it, to be fair, but
I mean, you just buy a BMW Z4 for cheaper. That's what you do.
Pretty much, yeah, because they are the same car.
It's the same car, same engine, same drivetrain. It handled a bit differently, I suppose, but that's sort of where the similarity. Yeah, that's where the similarities.
Like, I like the look of it, but it's not a Supra.
It looks great, but it's just a BMW.
Yeah.
Having owned a 140, that running gear is mighty impressive. It's the B58 engine is staggeringly good. Yeah, it's just a shame it's just a shame the new Supra has that running gear, even though the running gear is fantastic. It would just be nice if it was, if it was its own. But again, that's the modern way now. That is the modern. It's the modern way of cars now. There you go. Okay, so that's a new. Yeah. That's two questions then for the. What do people think of the new BMW, and then also what was the last proper Marmite car do you remember it ever being? Like, it was just, it was like proper like family feuds broke out over a car, or like car
friendships
groups.
ended.
Yeah, friendships ended, but based over a car. What was that last car? I'd be interested to see.
Basically, when was your last big team Discord argument, and what car was it about? Basically, is what we're trying to talk about. I mean, as well, one thing I will concede is that the sound of the BMW was not great. I'm not a fan of the sound of. Oh, was that Olivier Bultink off the track?
I think it was.
I think that was a Lamborghini in the gravel. There he goes up and running. The first little mistake we've seen from the Sim District GT3 car.
Ooh.
Oh, and the rear end just snaps. That is really... I've never seen it go like that.
Was it a
I've
gear
seen it
change
sort
too
of-
early?
It could have been a shift down or touch earlier, over revs it. Thankfully, the engine does go.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Oh.
Yeah, there we go. So
Yeah.
saving the fuel in... So this is one thing as well. For those of you who don't know, you hear the engine revs
Clutch
drop.
in.
Yeah, so what will happen is sometimes you'll clutch in, drivers will clutch in, whether that's via a button or they do it actually with the clutch pedal themselves. Either way, they'll dip the clutch in. Yeah, just one too many gear changes down. Obviously, it did look like the engine sounded fine, but yeah, that was not wasn't ideal. But I mean, to be fair, that was what, you know, a 6-7 second loss in a 39-second lead. I don't think Bolt needs to be losing too much sleep over that.
Yeah, I'm not. Don't think he's going to be too worried. He's still got, like you say, nearly 50 seconds to the good. And I mean, it's definitely interesting to see different people's opinions in the YouTube chat about different cars and such. But going back to what I was saying earlier, BMW, I don't like the sound of it. I really don't. The M8 GTE on iRacing sounds beautiful. Sounds really good in real life. But if you've ever seen trackside footage and even iRacing, hearing the BMW GT3 car, the new one, it does not sound great. There isn't much footage of the BMW IRL, but from things I've seen of it driving around Spa and doing tests at Monza, it doesn't sound great. It sounds
When
just
is it
kind
being
of
released as well? Like, is it next year it's taken to the track?
I think it is, taken to the track next year, so maybe they'll change it. But from what I've heard, it doesn't sound that great. It sounds really muted and not like a race car.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a shame.
But it
that,
looks
isn't
nice. I like the look of it.
There we go.
And it drives fun. It's really, really fun to drive. I enjoyed doing it a lot in the SRW, not Porsche, SRW BMW trophy. That was a very fun car to drive. Mainly because I was actually quick in it for like a few rounds. But maybe that's why I like it so
That's
much.
why you
as well,
like
'cause
it, yeah.
I'm doing all right in it.
To be fair, we did it. We were driving it at Bathurst. Sorry, while we're actually obviously sitting there on the subject, this is a battle that is still continued. This is between Hans Davies and Jesse Hendricks that are still sort of ebbing and flowing between 3 and 4 tenths of one another. And so we're just going to sort of sit and we're going to maybe have a look at a couple of other cars sort of driving and sort of getting an understanding of how their race is going. But at the moment, obviously, this is still continuing, so we're going to sit on this for a little bit longer. In regards to, someone's actually put, this is Jitsi, again, has come through saying, let's keep in the moody subject. I'm guessing this is talking about the, what was the last Marmite car? DeLorean. That's a good shout, because I hate them.
I mean, it was only famous because it was in that Back to the Future film, but I love the film so much that I can't really hate the DeLorean.
We're not agreeing on much, are we, here tonight, Ed? I've noticed a trend. I've noticed a trend here.
I like that. I just like the film. The car, I can sort of take it or leave it, but it's like it or not,
It's an iconic car. It's an iconic
car. Yeah.
It is an iconic car. Again, I will absolutely, will 100% admit that it's an iconic car. It does not float my boat as well. I don't want a car that's not been painted, personally. But
I think it was originally picked for the film because it was a bit of a rubbish box, I think is the broadcastable term we can call it. It just wasn't that great of a car, and they picked it for the film because it was a pants car that could, 88 miles per hour, it's amazing. And it was, it wasn't a great car.
though, because it looked, I mean, for the time, it's very striking.
Yeah.
It's a very striking car, and yet it was simply just terrible. At the same time,
great.
which I found it very, very. I just find it very, very amusing. Is a color because it looks, it should be relatively fast, but it should be fast enough, that you'd be able to keep up. It would keep up with, I don't know, walking. But it just, it just was never. Wasn't it like 0-60 in like 10 seconds or something? It's not ridiculous. Was it even slower than that?
It was not a good car. Let's put it that way. It was. It wasn't a great car. I don't know what it was actually. Not the 60. Just say it wasn't great, but it was basically just made famous from a film. And if it wasn't for that film, then it would have sold rubbish and no one would know it even existed. Because it wasn't really built very well either. I think from memory serves, it wasn't great to drive because the suspension was terrible, and the build quality was a bit pants as well. But we've got stuff going on the track. 2-hour mark has been reached. Jesse Hendricks was first of the cars to come in for a scheduled pit stop and has come in now for the next one.
That's after the hour.
And it is after the hour, so made it to that point. Actually, I think Hendricks came in at around about 55 minutes gone the race, so extended this stint to 1 hour and 5 minutes. Definitely within the realms of, well, definitely comfortably at this rate for coming in to finish the race and not have to worry about splash and dash. Now, Egazoglu takes over the reins, and that tells us tyres are going to be changed.
The driver change means tyre change. It doesn't always mean tyre change. You've got to be very, very brave to not take tyres if you're changing drivers. Having a quick look, Boltnick still hasn't come into the pits, but again, we're probably going to see Boltnick come in around sort of in the next 4 or 5 laps. One would imagine. I'm just having another look as well. This is Robin Van Gogh actually trying to get past. This isn't a battle for. This is not a class battle. This is simply a it's simply a battle you can get. You can see actually the speed difference. Now, funnily enough, and we were saying this as well. So Porsche Sport was saying this in the chat. Come Monza, the Porsche may not be that, but the Cup car may not be that much slower, simply because it has less aero. Monza's such a fast circuit that coming through down into the actually, do you know what? If anything, it's I imagine the GT3 drivers might actually be counting their lucky stars. There's only one Porsche Cup car because of something like Monza, where the speed difference might not be all that much.
Yeah, I remember actually. I think I was commentating on my endurance round where we saw cars in at Daytona multi-class with GT3s and Porsche Cups. Yeah, actually, maybe that was when I was racing. I can't remember if I was commentating or racing in it. It might have been one of the old Sim Racers World Endurance events, and that was, very interesting to see cars quicker in the GT3s through the infield, and then as soon as they got on the, sort of the banking on the straights going through the bus stop, it was night and day in terms of top end straight line speed. And you saw it a couple times actually, didn't we, Dan? On the first round of last season that I think we were both in the comms box for at Catalonia, if you can cast your mind back. And that straight is long enough that you did start to see Porsche Cup car get a little bit faster. Now, I don't know the exact intricacies between this Porsche Cup car to the last in terms of straight line speed, but I think if memory serves right, it is pretty much similar bits of kit, just slightly more modernised, just a little bit quicker, I think. But I don't know how it stacks up to a GT3 in straight line speed.
It's got more aero. I know, obviously, it's got more aero, bigger diffusers, bigger front bumpers, etc., etc., etc. So it is a bit faster everywhere, I think. It doesn't necessarily excel particularly compared to the old one in one area. It's just sort of like 10-15% better in everything. It's a little bit better on the brakes. It's I'd say one thing it really excels in is just traction. Remember the old Cup car? You'd look at the throttle and be like, no, I'm fine, and it would spin. This new guy, you can actually lean into the throttle a little bit. So, the balance is a little bit better in this car. It's got certainly much more traction compared to the old one. The old one was just an absolute death trap when it comes to the old circuit. It would just simply try and spin at every possible moment, every possible conceivable moment. It would just try and spin. But whereas this new one, it's certainly looking a lot easier to drive, which is great because I think it actually means as well it's more accessible for people who were a little bit unsure about the old Porsche Cup car, and they weren't 100% sure, maybe because again it's very hard. You have to dedicate a lot of time to drive that car right, to be honest. Whereas this new car, you don't have to. You still have to dedicate time to really lean into it and really gain that sort of understanding. But it's not 100% of a necessity to simply be able to just drive it. You can get into the car and just get out and crack on with it a little bit more, which is great. Unfortunately, and like I said, it has opened it up a little bit more for people.
I do think as well as we have a look at Goose Franken getting a tap up the rear, and again that is one of the that is Robin van Gogh involved in incidents in District GT3. The BMW not having the best of times, plummeting down from second place earlier on in this race. Involved in incidents, accidents ever since, and not been great. But yeah, going back to what you're talking about, that Porsche Cup car, the old one, it was such a good car for me personally, just to get quicker in iRacing. It really taught me a lot about sort of, I guess, the little intricacies and quirks of the physics system, the handling model, and also just about being a little bit more deft on the foot, and also about building confidence lap after lap, carrying the speed into the corner. It's a really good car, I think, for if you're not comfortable of sort of building up. It is a trial by fire. It is not an easy car to drive for a beginner, but you do learn and pick up good habits after driving it.
You do, yes, and you pick those habits up and you take those habits through to the to any other car. I think that's also the other really, really good thing about it as well. Is it is a car that you can learn a lot from. What we are going to do, everyone, in a few moments' time, we are going to have to take a little bit of a hiatus here and bring you back for part number 2. So we're going to be coming back at around about 10 to 7 in the evening here. So around about an hour and 40 minutes, and then we should be, and then we'll be back with you. We are going to give you the link as well in a few moments' time. We will be sending the link to you in the YouTube chat. So please make sure you do keep an eye out for that. And then once we are back all up and running, obviously we'll be able to continue with what is turning out to be a very, very good race so far. So do make sure that you stick around, because once that time comes, we will then have another couple of hours in these final few stages here. That is coming through, as I said, in but a few moments' time. And then we will have to depart for a small period of time. Then we will be coming back with you very, very shortly. Arguably though, Ed, I have really, really enjoyed myself so far this this first couple of hours, and I'm very, very excited to see the last, the final sort of couple of hours as well. I'm very, very excited for that. That's going to be very interesting to watch.
Yeah, it's going to be very exciting to see just exactly how this race shakes up in these final few moments. Plenty of action so far, haven't we? And we're coming to stage where the pit stops come through. Henry Grabber coming in now. Flemish Sim Sports. And Scott McFall as well. Is that he's taking control of the Sim District GT3 car that is in the lead of the race. Plenty of stuff to be excited about, of course. And not at least a battle in the Porsche Cups. Who's going to come out on top? Is it going to be... real question, I think, is going to be, is it going to be Ryan Parkins that will take the checker flag in first? Or will it be Peter Mckay? That's the question.
Well, I mean, there's only one way to find out. We're going to find out in a couple of hours' time, isn't there? I mean, to be fair as well, kudos for the guys cracking on. I mean, it's I can imagine it's there's going to be a lot of conversation there just to to keep morale up and to keep pushing forward, because it can be especially when you haven't got really too many people to race with. Even if you have got people on the circuit as well, but you're not in a position where you are racing people that much, you sometimes you're not actually 100% sure, or sometimes you're not necessarily 100% aware in terms of you can lose concentration actually a little bit easier as well. So it's good to see that we've got a good amount of well, we've both got obviously the sole Porsche Cup car still moving along, and hopefully we'll be able to see them when we come back as well in around in just under 2 hours. Actually, probably less than that, about an hour and 40 minutes. But yes, we are going to wrap up the second half of the part number 2 of the 6 hours of Zandvoort here for round number 1 of the DynamiXX Endurance Series is in the YouTube chat. You can also find it on the Sim Racers World YouTube as well, so please make sure you go there and check it out, and we look forward to seeing you back with us in around about 90 minutes. Thank you everyone for watching and being a part of it. We look forward to catching up with you soon. Take care everyone, stay safe. We'll catch you for part number 2.